What is up, everyone? We're back. Welcome to the ASTROLABE. I took a week off and everything happened. The entire world is going up in smoke. So apparently, doing a weekly or a daily ASTROLABE was the thing that was holding the country together. I'm sorry for abandoning you. I can't believe that I betrayed you guys so. But we're back. We're back for today. And I got a little bit of housekeeping I got to let you guys know about. So I told you probably last week sometime that the show was going to get that it was the schedule is going to get real packed here pretty soon, and we're probably going to have to abandon the whole morning show premise. There's going to be a number that are just going to be they're going to have to be after afternoon or evening, and there will be some days in the next couple of weeks that I miss the show again, because I've also teased for you guys a certain little project that we've been working on in the background, and it's happening, folks. We are a full go, and we're going to be doing a little bit of on-site work, a group of us, including Cooper and I. So I'm going to be leaving next week on Tuesday and driving up to Michigan, picking up Cooper, and driving to a mysterious location where we're going to be doing some filming. So I will probably not, there won't be a show on, there won't be a live show on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday of next week. There will be one on Monday. There will be one on Friday. I think it'll be on Friday, but it will not be in the morning. So you guys are just going to have to follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. I'll try to post in the community tab on YouTube to keep things updated. But you guys are just going to have to stay tuned for when it's going to happen. I promise to you, it's going to be worth it. I understand that I just learned leaving for a week means everything goes haywire. Well, I'm going to have to do it again. So we're going to see how much more haywire things go. And then the following week, it's going to be probably Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. There will be no show, no live show. Now I'm working on getting some content and stuff here to tide you guys over. I switched over my RSS feed to Substack yesterday, or over the weekend, or whenever. I don't even know what day it is. But go subscribe to the Substack, kingpill.substack.com. That's another place where you can get some updates on what's happening. And part of what I think I'm going to have to do here to try to duplicate the ASTROLABE experience as much as possible, I'm going to be recording some conversations, and then I will be uploading them on Substack, but they'll be for members only, because then I will drop them out live in the days that I'm gone. I'm not going to be able to do it for every single day that I'm gone, but for some of the days, I'm going to try to get you guys some interviews. For example, the Emergent Perspective conversation last week, or I think it dropped this week. It dropped on Tuesday. I've gotten some really good commentary on that. Everyone loved the sound effects, apparently. But the conversation was very good, and we are due for a part 2. So I'm going to have to talk to him and see if we can get a part 2 scheduled. Otherwise, I've got a couple other ideas of some shows that I can record that I'll drop. So they will drop behind the paywall on the King Pilled Substack or on the King Pilled YouTube. Become a channel member of the YouTube channel. You'll be able to see them as soon as I get them uploaded. But then I'll schedule them to go live to all of you out in Gen Pop on some of the days, so you get a little bit of as many days with ASTROLABE and or King Pilled content as possible. So I appreciate you guys showing up here again today. Do me a favor and hit the like button on your way in, and see if we can get this channel back into the algorithm. All the time off deboosts everything. So interact with this as much as possible. Send comments in the live chat, super chats, anything, any interaction you can have with the channel will get it reboosted. Speaking of boosting, I also need to point out for you, I'm sure that the majority of you who are watching this are already aware of the 2-Bit Podcast, but the 2-Bit Podcast is no more. It is no longer the 2-Bit Podcast. So if you're looking for it, you're not going to find it under that name. You'll find it under Mir and Chuck Now. We have the Mir and Chads, the Mir and Chuds, and the Mir and Chuckles. And Jason is rebranded to Mir and Chuck Now. And I believe that's his Twitter handle as well. Yeah, Miranchuk Now. That's It's actually really straightforward. It might seem like a weird name, but it's actually really straightforward. Mironchuck. Miranchuk Now. He's been doing live shows now. He's been holding it down while I've been out. So you should absolutely go be listening to those. If you're not, I don't know what you're doing. Go listen to those and support the man. And I'm going to give another shout out here as well, because I just listened to this conversation yesterday, and it had the old brain buzzing. None of it was really information that was new to me, and shouldn't be new to you if you've been keeping up with Jason's conversations with Stormy. But it was delivered in such a concise format that just laid out really, really well. This is the conversation. If someone doesn't want to get all of the details, all of the information, if you don't think that there's someone who's going to sit through like 2, 3, or 4 hour podcasts with Jason, and they just want the overview of everything that Jason and Stormy have talked about, and that Stormy has talked about on other platforms as well, then Jay Burden Show, Stormy Waters, 90 minutes, and that is an action-packed 90 minutes. Like I said, none of it was really new information to me, but it was just delivered in such an accelerated timeline that it just made everything really, really sink in there. Shout out to Jay Burden. He's a very, very good host. I aspire to be able to host like he does. All right. Well, I've got a bunch of stuff for you guys today. What am I not going to talk about? I'm not really going to talk about the debate. The debate was the debate. It was great. The memes. Like as soon as it was happening, I wasn't able to watch it because it was right in the middle of a huge family birthday party. We had like 40 or 50 people in the house, and my family was the main attraction. It was my son's birthday, and my family was the reason that everyone was there. So I was keeping up with the Twitter commentary a little bit, and as soon as I saw the memes, as soon as I saw the JD Vance, Jim Halpert, and the Tim Walz looking like a scared, weird little freak, I was like, okay, it's done. Like, it doesn't, as long as there was no massive like JD Vance completely stepping on his dick or something like that, then yeah, the debate was determined. And then JD fact checking the moderators, like it was, yeah. The debate was basically what I assumed it would be. I thought there was a possibility we might get some epic moment out of it, and we didn't really. But it seems, just from sort of considering the perspectives of Gen Pop, it seems like JD Vance really entered the scene with that. Like, to us, it was this is kind of I think indicative of the difference between us and the normies. I spent the last week mostly with normies, and it was enlightening considering it. We love our normies. Our normies are a beautiful thing. We need our normies to be normies. We need them to have unenlightened, oblivious takes on politics, and to just follow along with their party and just do their thing. Go about their lives, make memories, send their kids to schools and go on field trips and have adventures and experiences and get-togethers, and the kids are outside playing in the wood pile and making bonfires, and it was very, very wholesome, just kind of connecting with normal life. And we need that. We can't look down on the normies. We love our normies. We need our normies to continue being normies. It's our responsibility to lead the normies. That we're the ones that bear that responsibility. The normies don't need to change anything about themselves. They need to listen to us, but that's on us. We're the ones who need to figure out how to make them listen to us. And there's plenty of opportunities to get them listening to us. And that debate, it seems, was where JD Vance really penetrated the consciousness of the normie. And they liked what they saw. Well, they liked what they heard. It may be more like they like what they saw, especially the women. You could tell that the purpose of that debate from both sides, they were both like, we need to get the white woman vote. Like, this is targeted at the white woman vote. They were much more civil and even not deferential, but like complimentary to one another. They were going for the white woman vote. So if you're looking at the debate from our perspective, it's like, oh, it was kind of a He was like, yeah, well, you got a cool meme out of it, but there was nothing real significant. There was no like JD Vance absolutely mopping the floor with him sort of moment. But we got to realize that those sorts of perceptions are limited to a very small segment of society that we occupy. So JD Vance doesn't necessarily need to go drag his balls across Tim Wall's face on stage because in reality, that actually, there's a number of people who might be turned off by that sort of thing. They're not completely plugged in the way we are. So the way that the Vance and Trump campaign have been managing this, I think, is excellent. They're throwing so much red meat to us. They're giving us so much, but they're not doing it in a like really over the top, like super emotionally gratifying way, because there's still a rift between us and the normies. And the normies matter much more to them than we do in electoral terms. So if they're going to break a tie, they're going to break a tie on the normie side, which I fully endorse. I want them to be good at politics. And being good at politics means being able to simultaneously court the normies and the radicals. This is the world we live in right now. So I think the JD debate was just a stunning success. So I said I wasn't going to talk about it at all, but I just talked about it for like 5 minutes. What I've got here today is we're going to have to start off with some funny, lighthearted stuff because this is going to have some dark stuff in it. Vibe shift is almost underselling it. There has been a huge shift in consciousness, and I don't even know what to say. The Fed posting is ramping up, and this isn't a critique. This is just an observation. The Fed posting is ramping up for very, very good reasons. As a good mutual Brandon Walsh said on Twitter, all of our solutions are Fed posts. So we have to navigate this world. But it's a reality is that, and here's the thing with the normies, is that when the normies are coming online, the sorts of things that are required to bring the normies online are the sorts of things for which the only solution is Fed posting. So when the normies come online, they're going to come online Fed posting. And that's part of the reason why you don't necessarily want to just unleash that all at once. I got a thread I did last night that I'm going to read through later in the show today, but the task in front of us is extremely difficult because all of our solutions are Fed posts, but we don't. Having completely unhinged Fed posting is not going to help. And Fed posting here is I'm using it loosely as a bit of a euphemism. This is a difficult path to navigate, both for the sake of sustaining whatever civilization we have, building more, building better, building back better, you might say, and protecting our own souls. Because this is a time of revealing, a time of apocalypse, which means it's a great opportunity for possession by a spirit, by different spirits. And you don't want to try to solve the problem of possession by evil spirits by getting yourself possessed by an evil spirit. This is the story of the vengeful son that Jason's been talking about. And I think some people have seen this as like, oh, we need to be the vengeful son. No. That's the exact opposite take. That's the opposite of what you should take away from that. What you should take away from that is that the spirit that we are at war with, or the spirit that stands as our enemy, is the spirit of the vengeful son. It occupies the same status with respect to us as the smothering mother or the tyrannical father. The prodigal son is the vengeful son is the shadow of the prodigal son. And so as our world shifts from one in which we're being torn apart by the smothering mother to one in which we're being torn apart by the vengeful son, our obligation is to embody the spirit of the prodigal son, which is to return, repent, and be redeemed. And then to redeem that which is around us. So, I mean, the vengeful son prediction is probably the best, most validated prediction that I've seen in my time watching people making political, cultural predictions. It is absolutely on the rise. And it's not that it's unjustified for that spirit to come in, to be manifested. To say that you don't want to embody the spirit of the vengeful son is not to say that the vengeful son's the vengeful son should not have arisen or should not have been called into being. The reason that it's being called into being is because the things that are happening are things that generate a desire for bloodthirsty vengeance. Deep, deep resentment. And that's a trap. That resentment is a trap. It's a trap that's very easy to fall into because it's so justified. That's why Jason says it's going to feel good. It does feel good to just drive yourself down into that rage, that passion to destroy your enemies. But here's the thing. You don't just want to destroy those enemies, because destroying those enemies doesn't solve the problem. Because our problem is like, it's not enough to simply flatten what's in front of us. We also have to build on top of it. And if you set as your goal simply flattening what's in front of you, you're effectively a libertarian. You're functioning as a liberal, because this is the liberal's desire, is to deconstruct, to destroy, to break down, to eliminate distinctions. So if they're inflicting violence on people out of resentment, then wantonly inflicting violence upon people out of resentment doesn't make you any different. There is no differentiation there. You're the same thing. It's the same spirit embodying you both. Of course, there's a place for and a need for punishment, for resistance by force, if necessary. There is a place for violence. There are times where we may be called to use violence, but that violence is in defense of our homeland. It's not violence motivated by rage and resentment. It's violence motivated by discipline and humility and a willingness to lay oneself down for one's people. These are different spirits. So I tweeted yesterday that it's really, really hard not to Fed post. I was fuming. I was riding in the car to the store or to the airport and catching up on some of the headlines and everything and the videos and just seeing all the stuff. And I was just furious. I was seething all day yesterday and at different times throughout the weekend, just with all of this in the back of my mind. And I can feel that spirit calling me, that bloodlust, the desire to just see heads on spikes. And I think that there is a place for heads on spikes. But it has to be done in the right way, in service of the right spirit. And that's what makes it so difficult. I think when people hear like, the task in front of us is so difficult. We've got a lot of hard work. We have to do hard things. People think about that as like, oh, you're going to have to go engage in lots of violence. But engaging in lots of violence isn't hard. That's not the hard thing. It's not hard to just go into a trance state and start slaughtering everything you hate. That's actually pretty easy. The definition of civilization is a bunch of people who have extracted themselves from possession by that spirit, who have that spirit under control and channeled. That's what a civilization is. So the hard work is not giving yourself over to the hate and the anger and the rage and just starting to go ham. That's not hard. The hard part is feeling the desire for that and getting that desire gratified and still suppressing it and channeling it and controlling it. Because that desire, that spirit is not virtuous. It's a passion. It's a passion that has to be subjected and then channeled productively. So I was steaming with all this yesterday, and I knew that today's show was going to be dark. There's going to be a lot of dark stuff in this. So we got to start things off on a lighter note, and then I've got some good stuff for as we're wrapping here. I've got a couple little white pills, and we'll be able to end things on a less dark note. Now, I just realized that I kind of fucked up here because I can't access some of my windows that I'm going to need to access. So give me just a second here while I've got a widescreen monitor, but I also have an absolute crap load of tabs open. So I want this one. This one needs to be here. This one needs to be, oh my God. I'm out of practice. Okay, that should work. All right, so a little bit of lighthearted stuff here. Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat. Oh man, you guys are popping. James Lindsay finally getting the public treatment he's always deserved. Yeah, I saw that. The dude has become just like the biggest lol cow on the internet. Okay. Guile says, what's the redeemed version of the vengeful son? Yes, it's the prodigal son. CG Constantine says, yep, the vengeful son is justified, and that's the danger of it. Yes, exactly. Vengeance is not yours. And this is the meaning of when Christ says vengeance is, when the Bible says vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, and Christ quoted it. Vengeance being the Lord's is not, I'm taking this thing away from you that you don't get to do, this super special thing. It's, I'm protecting your soul from having to do that thing that would be so deleterious to your soul. I will take that on. I will do that. So give the hardest, the worst thing to me. The most damaging thing to me. Don't do it yourself because of what it'll do to you. The whole premise of vengeance is that, because you can argue all you want about how, like, oh, it's justified for this or for that or for that. Look at this thing they did. And how can you say the entire premise of vengeance is that it's justified? If you're engaged in the act of seeking vengeance, you've been grievously harmed. That's the whole premise. So when someone says, don't be overcome by a bloodlust for vengeance, they're not saying the thing that happened to you wasn't bad enough to justify that. It's like saying, like, don't throw yourself into that pit full of vipers and sharpened spikes. You may think that that's like, oh, it's going to make everything better. And you're fully convinced of that. And we're saying, no, it won't make anything better. You think it will. You've got a great rationalization for why to do it. But the reality is, it will destroy your own soul. So it won't make things better. You've now just been, this is the 4D chess of the powers and principalities, is they give you a fully justified reason to destroy yourself. Don't destroy yourself. P. Quinones, What's up, man? He says, if a FEMA worker has in fact been beaten, as has been reported, it will escalate. Knowing where it has to stop is what separates leaders from followers. Yes. Yes, and this is why humanity can only function as a hierarchy. Because there's some people who say, no, there should be no violence ever whatsoever. There is no time ever to engage in violence. And that in itself is a form of violence. That's left-wing violence. Because the only thing that constrains violence is violence. So there is a time for defending your communities from invaders. Whether that community is your home, or your neighborhood, or your city, whatever you can function as, in whatever way you can function as a polity, you have a responsibility when people are entering your space uninvited and inflicting violence upon you. You have not just the justification, but the obligation to do everything up to and including violence to remove them. Knowing what sort of violence and when and how and for how long, all of those things require wisdom, which requires leadership, which necessitates a hierarchy. So to say that no violence should ever occur is really just to say that only illegitimate violence should occur, and that justified violence never should. True justice versus social justice. That's good, yeah. DC Woodworking says, God's justice is delivered with love for our enemies, even when the punishment is severe. Yep. And if you don't understand the difference there, like just the change in focus of your mind differentiates that. The actions in some cases may be the same, but actions done for this reason versus actions done for this reason. And if the reason is negative and destructive, you're embodying the vengeful son. If the motivation is constructive and in pursuit of justice, not vengeance, you're embodying the spirit of the prodigal son. Okay, let's get this started. You guys are jamming in the chat. It's good to see you. I can't keep up with everything today because I've got a lot to get through. So let's get some of this lighthearted stuff to remind ourselves of the things that are good in the world. This tab. Let me know if you can't hear the audio for whatever reason. I already had some technical difficulties this morning from being away. So if it happens again, then just alert me and I'll go back and look. Imagine living in a high-trust society.
This is a parking lot where all the dogs park their vehicles. One by one, they go to pick up the kids from school. Because in China, dogs are trained to take care of young students and drive them from one place to another. These dogs don't even get paid for their work. Actually, they enjoy bringing the kids to school. And when classes are over, they bring the kids back home safely. But even with all that, the dog only received 2 likes. This is a parking lot where all the dogs park.
I want to live in a little community like this. Imagine having a little schoolhouse with a handful of kids, and then there's like you could do this, like the school has its tuition that it charges, and then it contracts with the people who own all and train all of the dogs to provide the equipment and the materials and stuff for the dogs, or the school itself could do it. The school itself could budget for training their little dog buses. Wouldn't this be freaking cool to live in this little world? There are still so many beautiful things in the world. Yeah, CB says nothing ever happens. Bros are refinancing the word nothing. Yeah, the nothing ever happens is an ideology, and it functions as one, up to and including the inability to recognize really, really obvious realities. Another good guy here. This is... The Amish are going to be all right, I think.
Well, the way I see it, 21st century has nothing to offer me. It's absolute hell. Every single second is hell. hate every second I'm awake, so if I can just avoid the 21st century, just completely get it out of the picture entirely, I'm doing a good thing.
What about the modern age makes it unbearable to you?
Well, everybody's an idiot. You can't do nothing without somebody giving you a hard time. Fun is pretty much entirely illegal. There's no aeroplanes where you can smoke with the lingerie lunches. Ain't none of that anymore. There's an absolute lack of any sense in the general population. Everybody's just crummy, walking around looking like freaks. I don't care for them one bit. Around these parts is pretty much one of the only places north of the Mason-Dixon you'll find any single person with any defining characteristics whatsoever. You have no idea how difficult it is to have an actual conversation around here. These people are no good. They're no good whatsoever. The internet's a bad place for bad people. They can all scram. Let me alone.
I'm going to end that before the song. It might be too late. The song might already get the video demonetized, but there's going to be plenty of other stuff in this show that's going to get it demonetized. So I'm not going to sweat it too much. Yeah, I think this is actually part of, yeah, he's obviously not Amish. This is part of the neo-trads thing. I'm gonna speak for Jason when I say that what we're seeing here is a manifestation of that neo-trad spirit. This guy has going back to a time in the past as a rejection of the modern age, going back for ostensibly wholesome and noble reasons. That's part of the neo-trad thing. And if it's put on, like, he's obviously not, this isn't authentic. It's a performance. But he's committing himself to the performance sincerely. At least, as you can tell from this video here, to whatever extent. But there's going to be much more of this and different varieties of this, going back to the 50s, going back to the 90s, going back to the 20s, going back to the going back to is going to become a defining thing. Now, you can't go back. Yeah, you can't actually go back. There is no going back. There's only going forward. And whatever go back version you're going back to is going to be tinged by the future thing, which is also informed by the present thing. So there's no just like go back, but there is drawing wisdom and drawing inspiration from things about the past. We're going to see so much more of this type of, not like this specific character type, but this sort of thing in general. As the normies are coming online, many of them are going to respond in more or less this way. Just choosing to live in an alternate reality completely. And in a lot of ways, it's more possible now than it was a few decades ago. And then we've got here, I think the only billionaire comedian on the planet right now.
She let in, and that's not even mentioning the rapists, the gang members, the drug dealers, the child predators, and the traffickers in women, mostly women. Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. She was born that way. And if you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country. Anybody would know this.
Again with the pink. Like, what are they doing with the lighting? If it was red lighting, I don't think that it would show up so brilliantly pink on top of his head. And you can see like a pink, like, I don't know, like overlay almost on his jacket. The pink is very odd. This is when we were, I remember right after the assassination attempt, some of us were speculating about how things were going to go with Vance in the fold. And straight up calling his opponent a retard. And a lot of us were thinking, that this is going to be Trump now moderating and becoming softer. And he was kind of that way for a little while. And then Vance is going to be the attack dog. And it's almost been the other way around. Like Vance has been an attack dog, but he's been like a very magnanimous and sincere attack dog. He's not just out there just throwing bows, like this, straight up calling his opponent a retard. Trump has actually gotten more focused and aggressive with his rhetoric, like this. He's about to go Super Saiyan. Yeah, witch assassination attempt. Yeah, good point. Do me a favor and hit the like button, folks. We got 115 watching and only 38 likes. Oh, and I see I got a super chat in here. I missed that one. Let's go back and find it. $1.99. I appreciate you guys whenever you contribute anything. And I don't want something to go overlooked. So I will vamp as I scroll. You can also go to buymeacoffee.com/kingpilled. I will say that anything that you can contribute, I know I'm kind of doing both things here where I'm I'm saying you're going to get less content, but also please contribute more. But I'm going to attempt to make the content even more focused and productive and valuable, not just kind of day-to-day commentary on what's happening. Here it is, $1.99 from Screwed Up Rebellion. He says, "Welcome back to Texas, King. God bless." Salute and God bless. I like that little salute emoji. But yeah, please, if anything that you can contribute will make things a lot easier. We've got a lot of moving parts going on right now. Going to be doing a lot of traveling. We've been doing a lot of traveling. And anything that you can contribute is very valuable. This is essentially, I've been dropping off all of my other obligations and focusing more and more on the show and everything associated with it to where it's become pretty much my full-time gig now. And we're making ends meet for the time being. God has been great. We've been very blessed, but anything that you can contribute is very much appreciated and needed. So buymeacoffee.com/kingpilled. You can contribute there. You can send a super chat here. You can join the King Pilled Discord, become a King Pilled, become one of the King Pilled on the King Pilled YouTube channel membership, which you can only do from a desktop. You can't do it from mobile because YouTube is retarded. Kingpilled.com to become a member of the Discord. And I just last week sealed up a partnership that I'll be telling you guys more about here pretty soon. That'll be something that will be available to people in the King Pill Discord. It'll be very good for you guys. So I understand. I haven't met a lot of you in person, but I've talked to a lot of people who have met a lot of you in person, and they said that this is a particular problem that many of our guys have. So we're gonna put our brand authority behind something and promote one of our guys who's trying to help you guys. A $10 super chat from Dagon. Thank you, sir. Very much appreciated. My wife is reminding me to tell you guys the volcano story, and I do need to tell you that. I should have started off with this, so I apologize for jumping around a bit here. But so we're traveling up to Washington for my son's 4th birthday, and he has been just obsessed lately with natural disasters. This is even before. I didn't even think about this, but it's kind of weird that he totally is all about natural disasters, and then this huge hurricane comes. It's kind of interesting. Particularly tornadoes and volcanoes. Volcanoes has been his whole thing. He's asking me what sort of tools a volcanologist uses and wants to be a volcanologist someday. And we told him that we're going up to Washington, and there's a lot of volcanoes up there, a lot of dormant volcanoes. And that when we fly in, there's going to be, he'll probably be able to, if he can see out the window, he'll probably be able to see some of them. So Amy taught him this little script and rehearsed it. So as soon as we got onto the plane in the morning, we first of all, going through security here in San Antonio was just an absolute breeze. They were the kindest people they're totally chipper and friendly and laughing and joking, very personable. Didn't make us take off our shoes or our belts or our jewelry or anything like that. Didn't make us take our laptops out. Eastwood had a little bottle of drinkable yogurt that was opened and half consumed, just hanging out of the pocket on his backpack. Went right through the scanner. They didn't even care. Just pushed us right on through. In Seattle, it was a little bit more like I got my bag searched, and they were a little more like normal TSA. But even then, they were still really relaxed and chill, even though it was kind of busy. But so we get onto the plane, and as Eastwood's walking in, pulling his little carry-on, as soon as he sees the stewardesses there and the pilots were kind of standing, he says he just kicks in his little script, and I can't remember exactly what it was. It was something like, "It's my birthday, and I really like volcanoes. Can you point to the volcanoes when we pass them?" So the pilots, they all thought he was just great. So they invited him into the cockpit. He got to go in there and look at everything while I'm back loading the luggage in. And then they come back and they sit down. And then before we take off, the pilot comes walking down, looking for the row, finds us. He says, "Are you Eastwood?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he gave him the little pilot wings pen, the little metal pen. He gave him one of those and talked to him for a minute, told him he really likes volcanoes, that he's from Washington, and he'll point to them and let us know where they are. And then the stewardesses were all like talking to him and saying happy birthday. They gave him some extra little treats. And then as we're flying, we're coming in, and maybe 30 minutes or so before we land, the pilot comes on over the intercom and says, "Eastwood, I don't know if you're still awake, but we're going to be passing the volcanoes here on the left side of the airplane. If you look out the window," they knew which side of the plane he was on. He said, "If you look out the window, you'll be able to see him." And he identified which ones were which. I've flown into and out of Seattle many, many times. I have never been on a plane that has entered that low and that close to Mount Rainier. We were like right next to it. Perfect view right out our window. And I don't know if the pilots are able to like adjust their flight plan on the fly, so to speak, like that. But I definitely got the impression that they intentionally came in lower and closer to Mount Rainier than they normally would have for his sake. This might just be me, being his dad and wanting to believe that, but it sure seemed like it. So he had his little volcano diagram that Amy printed off, showing how all the different components of it, and so it was very, very cool. And then on the way back out, he got to see it again too, and he was like, by that point, he was like, "Oh, yay, cool! Look, there's volcanoes. Anyways, what am I doing here?" But here's his first flying experience. He absolutely loved it. Amy hates flying. She was not happy taking off or landing, or anytime we hit a little bit of turbulence. He couldn't have been less phased. When we landed in San Antonio, we came in hot and hit down pretty hard and then slowed down really fast. And Amy was like, "Ugh!" And Eastwood didn't care one bit. "Oh, look, the flaps." He's hilarious. Yeah, here's the script. "My name is Eastwood, and it's my birthday. I really like volcanoes. Can you please tell us when the volcanoes are close and which windows to look out?" So yeah, that was the volcano story. I tweeted out some pictures. You'll have to go back a little ways in my the media tab on Twitter, but I tweeted out some pictures of my parents' homestead that they're developing. My mom has just an incredible garden, and it was wonderful being in trees and mountains. The air was so crisp and fresh. It got down to like in the 30s at night, and we took off, and it was a nice warm day for that time of year for Seattle. It was 64 degrees when we took off, and 3 hours later when we landed, it was 93 in Texas, and I was like, "Oh, we're back now." Nephilim says, "On a clear day, they can indeed request vectors for that kind of thing. Done it." Okay, I'm convinced of it then. I'm convinced that they intentionally came in low and close to the mountain just so he could see it. And we also did notice we were identifying the demographics of our staff, and they were all white, and the pilots were all male. So that made us feel a little bit better flying on a Boeing plane. That's part of the reason why I'm going to be driving up to get Cooper and driving to our undisclosed operating location, because I feel like we've tempted fate a couple of times with those flights, and as long as Pete Buttgag is the transportation secretary, I'm not going to fly if I don't have to, especially on the East Coast with everything going on right now. Anyways, okay, let's continue here. Got a banger quote from Martyr Maid on the New Founding podcast. And like Martyr Maid gets it. Martyr Maid knows exactly what time it is, exactly what's required of us, and what the dangers are out there.
We The right-wing politics for the last decade or two at least has basically been us trying to basically begging the other side, please give us another way to address our concerns without imprisoning all of you or stringing you up from lampposts. Give us any other way, because we don't want to do that. We value the Constitution. We don't want to radically destroy the country that we grew up in. All those things are important to us. We don't want to give all those things up. Just give us something, throw us some kind of a compromise that we can work with to feel like that, that's not our only option. That's been right-wing politics for 20 years.
That's one of the best descriptions that I've ever heard. We give our Con Inc. representatives a hard time, and appropriately so, for their feebleness, their willingness to be cucked. But this is why, this is the explanation for it. Because we understand what's going to happen if formal means don't work. If it's not possible to legally and properly do the things that must be done, by definition, they're going to happen illegally and improperly. This is the posture that we need to have. Recognizing that the reason why we are taking power, the reason why we're taking control of our communities, the reason why we're taking control of the narrative is not just out of spite for our political opponents. It's not just because we're angry. It's because it's our responsibility to prevent the worst things from happening. And we know from a well-documented history of humanity that those worst things are going to happen. We don't want to live in a world where people are hanging from lampposts. Memes aside, yes, there's obviously gratification to that, but given a choice between a world where people must hang from lampposts and a world where they don't, 100 out of 100 times, I will choose the one where they don't, until that's no longer an option. Our responsibility is to figure out how that is an option, to choose that world at every possible opportunity. And we may fail. We may get the world. It looks like we're probably going to get the world where people must hang from lampposts. But we don't want that world. Everything that we're doing is motivated by a desire to avoid that world because of just how catastrophic and awful and horrible that world is. The psychological damage that world will do to generations will define the formation of the next global empire. If that empire has to be formed that way, that's how it will be formed. But it's our responsibility to figure out how that empire can form without that happening. And our options for that are decreasing rapidly, which is itself a condemnation of us, that we've allowed ourselves to get to this point where we have fewer and fewer options. We have to take responsibility for that, because if we don't, nobody will. All right. So we're going to have to get into some hard stuff here. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this already. If you haven't, don't look away. I've got a thread here where I'll explain in more detail, but we need to view these things. It's no longer good enough for us to just say, no, that's bad. That's going to bring down my spirit. That's depressing. I don't want to see that. I don't want to have to think about that being a reality. No, we have to think about this being a reality because it is a reality. We are obligated to recognize these realities and not just stick our head in the sands. Last image of a wife and husband in Asheville, North Carolina, sheltering from the flood on a roof. The roof would soon collapse, causing them and their 6-year-old grandchild to drown. The daughter and mother of the child took the photograph. When the roof collapsed, she got wedged between debris and was able to be rescued an hour later. And things are way, way worse in Burnsville. These pictures need to reach people. This was tweeted out September 29. This was one of the first images that I saw for all of this. Look at how high the water is. The magnitude, the scale of this flood is impossible for me to comprehend. And I don't think it was natural. I think it's yes, you can get once in a millennium type of flooding like this naturally, but I don't think this was natural. I think it was amplified. The scale of this destruction is beyond comprehension. Imagine your community, imagine the neighborhoods that you live in being inundated with this amount of water. And what that would be like the sheer scale of that damage. It's effectively made these areas uninhabitable. And this is what happened to the people there. They got no warning. They got no warning that anything remotely close to this was going to happen. The people on the coast used to retreat to these neighborhoods to get away from this sort of thing. There was no warning whatsoever. Imagine yourself sitting at home. There's a big storm coming in. And you're like, all right, we're going to maybe some trees are going to go down. There's going to be wind damage. And, down by the waterways, there's going to be localized flooding. So get yourselves out of that area and hunker down and be prepared for a really bad storm. And then 15 feet of water just blew through the entire area. Absolutely wiped the surface of the earth clean. These people were not remotely ready for this. They were abandoned and betrayed by their leadership that they depended on. You could say, oh, well, joke's on them. They shouldn't have been depending on them. No, they should have. That's the fucking point. This is the responsibility of leadership. And it doesn't, the question of whether that leadership is simply incompetent or malevolent or some sort of combination of the two, that's just like a second or third order thing to figure out. The fundamental problem here is that these are people, these are like orphaned children. I think I said in the thread I'm going to read you in a little bit, they're like children whose parents sold them into slavery for the fun of it. These are our people. This is what's been done to them. I got my tabs out of order. Here we go. Here is the mother who took that picture.
I'm so proud of my son because in his last moments, he wasn't screaming for me. He was screaming, Jesus, Jesus, save me. Jesus, I hear you. Jesus, I'm calling upon you. And his wildest dreams and everything that he wanted to be was a superhero. And that was his goal in life. And instead, he's my hero because he reached for something past flesh, past human, past anything that even grown adults, I think, would reach for. My son called out to the one God Almighty. And I think at that moment he was rescued and he became my hero. And I think all of them carried me through that moment. I think that his biggest dreams, he was the smartest, bravest, hopeful, great friend, great son. I couldn't have asked for a better son. And he was so happy up until the very end when he was screaming for Jesus. And in that moment, I think he found joy.
The innocence of children is actually quite spectacular. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it is. Marissa being a mother too, Megan and Heather, I do, amidst the tragedy, your parents as well, Jessica included.
Next one.
Wish that I was on a rocket top down in the Tennessee hills. Ain't no smoggy smoke on rocket top. Strangers ain't come down from Rocky Top, reckon they never will.
What I want to highlight from this one, beyond all the devastation, is these are the people that we're getting this from. Some chick with a TikTok. I don't know if she's just rich and has access to her own helicopter, or is working with someone. Like, I don't care. I don't care about all the details. This is where we're getting this information from private people who are going out and doing all of this themselves. Are they doing it for the views, for the engagement, for the credibility? Sure, I don't care. There is a positive incentive structure here. The reality of social media, this is one of the ways in which social media has completely changed the landscape. Now there's an incentive for people who want the views and the monetization and the whatever, the fame and the credibility and yada, 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 to go out and do this themselves. Imagine having the government that we have right now and not having social media, not having the ability for people to go out independently, become their own news agency, and produce something like this for us so that we understand what's going on there. $10 super chat from Slosher. Thank you, man. He says, just woke up for night shift. Oren made a great observation. The endless money well didn't run out for Ukraine and Israel. It ran out for American citizens. It was a choice. These people hate you. Yes. When was the last time that you heard a government agency come out and say, we don't have the money for something? Oh, we can't afford that. Billions and billions of dollars is being funneled to corrupt oligarchs, but nothing for the American people. $750. It's a slap in the face.
This is another story from Western North Carolina. This is from an Iraq veteran who's in the area. He says this entire area is a war zone. Even if not directly destroyed by floodwaters, there are men, women, and children starving, without water and sanitation, no fuel. People can't get to any distro points because they have no fuel. People are walking on foot and dragging wagons. The majority of federal and state assets are being diverted to the incorporated areas of Asheville, Black Mountain, etc., and without a deliberate effort yet into the rural unincorporated areas. This was written earlier in the week. I can confirm now that helicopter crews are working day in, day out, all day, 24/7, to evacuate people from those smaller unincorporated towns, as well as get supplies into them. It goes on, people are suffering and communities are rapidly moving to isolation and self-defense and policing. Trigger warning for this next part. There are bodies floating down the rivers. There are bodies stuck in the tops of trees. Linemen entering destroyed areas are finding dozens of children as young as 3 walking through the mud near naked, crying for their parents, some with ropes still tied around their arms, attached to broken lumber, where clearly their dead parents had last ditch tied them to something. I was talking to a lineman yesterday, how he's finding heads and limbs every time debris is removed. Entire communities are gone. Just gone. Nothing to repair. And in some of the areas, just no one to even help anymore. Just bodies, with a stench increasing by the day. The death count will be in the thousands. Desperation is increasing. Local rural gas stations, markets, etc. have clear militias forming with men in hodgepodge gear and rifles patrolling. We are self-policing now. If you need help in the area or you want to help in some way, please go here. There is a ton of resources consolidated here. Please keep the comment section positive and do not share misinformation or conspiracy theories or victim blame on my post.
Now, if you notice when he shared his channel here, ex-Christian sock dem. But you know what? Right now, I don't care. I don't care about his political persuasions. He's an American. This is an American crisis that is only being navigated, resolved by actual Americans. What this whole thing has made abundantly evident to anyone paying attention is that the federal government and all of its proxy institutions are not American institutions. They are not governed by Americans. They're governed by hostile foreign interests. There are some people who were born in America. There are many people who were born in America who are occupying these roles, but they're not Americans. I don't care where they were born. I care what they're doing. And what they're doing reveals that they are not Americans. They don't have any commitment to America. They don't love America. They don't want to see America be great. It's actually the opposite. They're hostile to America. They exist for the sake of destroying America. They're traitors. This is the definition of treason. Treasonous leaders do not get to claim the identity of the people that they're abusing. There's a reason why treason has always been punished as treason has been. Amy says, what's up with the audio levels of the clips? Is that a me issue? Is the audio level low? I can pull it up I've got a bunch more clips here, so I'll pull it up if I need to. I'll wait to play this next clip until the chat catches up. Audio's fine for me. Yeah, I got the Lindsey Graham clip coming in a little bit. All right, I'll pull up the audio on this one just a little bit, and I'll play it. This is an American.
Hey guys, I'm in Western North Carolina, and we're working on day 6, and we still have rescue choppers flying overhead. I think I've got a little bit of survivor's guilt that our town was spared. But, we need the help. The whole town was wiped out. And I'm talking about everybody was killed. Okay, the fucking media is lying to you. And we need the help. We need it bad. We can't go help. We can't go save anybody. We've been threatened. We'll get arrested. I can't imagine the people that are still up there holding on to survive. I mean, we still got electric trucks going all over the place here. Got trees down, tree on my house in the back. But, it's incredible. It's incredible that we, the people, are willing to let the government tell us that we are not allowed to save our own people. It's bad. It's really fucking bad. It's worse. It's beyond any nightmare that you can fucking have. There are bodies everywhere up there floating around, buried under mud. Cemeteries most likely have flooded, which means there will probably be caskets and shit floating around. That I don't know of. But I do know that a town was wiped out completely. Everybody killed. And the only people saving them are the people that are there, saving each other. And then they're all stuck together. Fuck our government. You fucking showed your faces with this fucking disaster. And all I got to say, fuck you.
A must watch with sound on. Didn't want to believe that FEMA had spent their entire budget on housing illegal immigrants, but it appears they have. Easily verifiable on the government site. Sad state of affairs when the actual citizens of Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia, and Hawaii get the leftover scraps. This is from Bowtied Broke, sharing this video.
Wish that I was on old Rocky Top, down in the Tennessee hills. Ain't no smoky smoke on Rocky Top. Ain't no telephone bills. You'll always be home sweet home to me. Rocky Top, Tennessee. Rocky Top, Tennessee. Rocky Top, Tennessee.
Josh Ham says, I'm heading to Western North Carolina. There's a bunch of different people that are all headed out there. I see that Meta Prime has a group of guys that are headed out. Josh is going out there. Any of you guys that are doing this, keep us updated. Let us know what you need. I'm happy to signal boost any of this because this is the top priority here. Like there are political consequences. There need to be political consequences to this, and that conversation has to be had. It has to be worked out. Some of us can work on that. The number one priority here is rescuing people, number one, and then helping them to rebuild. It's going to have to happen through actual Americans doing it irrespective of what local and state and federal governments say or do. There is plenty of willpower to back the sorts of things that need to be done. The number one priority is rescuing people. People need to be rescued no matter what the law says, no matter what the representatives of the law say. Pete says an OGC faction is headed there as well. Bless you guys. The operation, the order of operations here is get as many people and resources to this area as possible, treating the official institutions as obstacles to be overcome, no matter what they say or do. This is going to require people putting themselves at great risk. They already are. And it's risky enough going into these areas to actually do the work of rescuing people and uncovering people's homes, uncovering bodies. That's risky by itself. But the fact of our situation is that there are added risks. So we need as much amplification out of these areas as to exactly what's going on with the facts on the ground. Yeah, Pete says don't go unarmed. Absolutely. If you're there to rescue people and to support these local communities, and official institutions want to blockade any of that operation, no matter the justification that they give, this is an apocalyptic moment. This is the great revealing is underway. The official legal institutions are revealing themselves to be criminal networks who are showing up here under an official guise for the sake of plundering, looting, and abusing the people for their own gain. I don't care what their official charter says. I don't care what their PR statements are. I care about what they're doing and the effect that they're having. And I don't care if it's in service to some great conspiratorial agenda or if it's just the banality of the great evil that is bureaucracy. It doesn't matter. This is a crisis, and the number one priority is rescuing the people who need to be rescued and supporting them. That must be done no matter what, no matter who says it can't happen, no matter who tries to get in the way. If this needs to become a point of existential conflict, then it needs to become a point of existential conflict. Because if they're not stood down now, it will happen again, and it will be worse. Institutional memory is a bitch. And these organisms are navigating into this area to establish a bunch of institutional memory to be transplanted to every other crisis that ever happens. And every other crisis will be handled in the same way. The victims will be looted and abused and murdered, and those who try to help will have the same thing done to them. This can't go on. O2 Tom says, any agent of the state trying to block people from helping must be recorded and made to state their name, department, and badge number. I hope that it can stay that way. That's not the end of the road. Bryce says, going there is heroic, but it will mess with your soul. It will. Pray for those who are going down to help. Pray for the people who are already there, not just for physical safety and success, but for their spiritual well-being. And also know that there are going to be plenty of people who are grifting on this. So be prudent. There's absolutely soulless people out there who are grafting onto this for their own purposes. And I've taken this into consideration with some of the things that I'm sharing here and some of them that I'm not, that there is absolutely intelligence activity all over this. Whether premeditated or emergent doesn't matter, but there are absolutely forces who are trying to force particular narratives and courses of action through. So you need to have both those of you who are going there and those of us who aren't, who are just trafficking in narrative and trying to signal boost things. We have to be prudent about the things that we believe and boost as well. Don't get suckered into misinformation because it is a real thing. And if you think that there aren't people trying to capitalize on this to foment forms of conflict that aren't necessary on baseless premises, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it is very obviously the case. We need wisdom. We need to pray for wisdom. Speaking of people getting radicalized, Brett Weinstein is well down the road. He said, at what point is it fair to conclude that our government has been captured by something hostile to the Republic and its citizens? FEMA is literally claiming it doesn't have the money to manage an emergency. Military helicopter crews are grounded. Civilians with helicopters are ordered not to intervene. Same vibe as Maui and Katrina. Feels like we're there. And K-Man, Know-It-All Kyle, says, also it turns out that our entire backup supply of Transformers, 60 of them, was sent to Ukraine in May. So we don't even have what we need to fix the grid in these places. This is all catastrophic. Brett says, what? Link? This link here, helping Ukraine, USAID Energy Security Project. Quoting, the U.S. government through USAID ESP continues to stand with Ukraine and our national and local partners, including energy companies, to provide critical supplies of electricity, gas, heat, and hot water to people throughout Ukraine. And I found this. It sucks when the Transformer monster spends 2 years regularly eating your Transformers and suddenly you need them. Jesse Jenkins says, this is devastating. We do not have 360 substations worth of transformers and other electrical equipment sitting in stockpiles waiting to be deployed. It could take a very long time to restore power to anyone. Are we facing a Hurricane Maria type impact on grid infrastructure? And he is signal boosting this guy. 360 substations are out. A substation is responsible for transmitting electricity throughout Western North Carolina. Many of these substations were completely flooded, and Duke Energy is unable to assess the damage until the flooding is lowered. The water's been pumped out, and the equipment is thoroughly dried. The flooding provides a unique challenge not previously faced by substations in Western North Carolina. There's a high likelihood that the substations are not repairable, and replacement of the substation equipment will be necessary. Duke Energy is prepared to both repair or replace damaged equipment once the equipment has been dried and assessments are complete. And from here, the U.S. ambassador to Kiev, let me see what the date was on this again. Good grief. The slowest loading image of all time. I want to just close out and just open the tweet and see if the image is displayed in full, but I also... it is progressing, and I don't want to let it go. Okay. March 21, 2024. Last week, we provided through USAID 50 voltage transformers, 9 current transformers, and 80 isolators to Kharkiv's energy distribution system operator to help energy workers undertake urgent repairs to Kharkiv's electrical grid damaged by Russia's missile and drone attacks. So, the people of Western North Carolina, and probably other places, are going to be deprived of power for longer than they need to be because all this stuff was sent to Ukraine. This is where the rubber really starts meeting the road. Like, it's one thing when they're just sending all this money and we're being like slowly impoverished through it. That's one thing. It's easy for people to just kind of, oh, yeah, whatever. But when this sort of thing starts happening, this is existential. This is no longer just a political problem. This is an existential civilizational problem that must be solved. It cannot be allowed to continue. How many Americans are going to die directly because of this? Because they're going to be without power for who knows how long. This is unconscionable. This thread's been going around, and I've seen enough validation of it that I'm comfortable sharing it here. At Ryan Tyre, Tyre on Twitter, he says, if you're wondering why citizens are being turned away that are coming to help North Carolina and Tennessee, you'll want to hear my experience as someone who's been doing this as a private citizen for almost a decade. I was able to get into and out of Asheville. We brought food, water, fuel, and other supplies, as well as helped people affected by the floods, but there are reasons why they're not allowing outside help. I cannot confirm the reasons why in North Carolina, but I can tell you the reasons in other storms I have worked. I'll explain below. Let me share with you the first disaster area that I finally realized that this was all about money. In the Florida Keys with Hurricane Irma, after Texas got hit with Harvey, we finished our efforts in Texas and were the first citizen team to make it to Key Largo. The federal agencies had US 1 shut down just south of Key Largo and wouldn't let anyone in or out, even though the road was okay to pass. We explained to them that we had boats, jet skis, food, water, chainsaws, and fuel to bring these people. They didn't care and wouldn't let us in. It was night by that point, and you rarely saw the lights of vehicles in the distance on the individual keys, meaning the emergency response teams from FEMA weren't even working. It was all quiet. We decided we would go in anyways. We filled up the boats and jet skis with all that we could reasonably carry and went by water, around all their BS blockades and around their law enforcement presence on the water. It was 87 miles by water to get to our first stop, Cudjoe Key and Sugarloaf Key. When we arrived there, we were greeted by a homeowner. For privacy, I won't name him, though we have video, who was elated to see us and all the supplies we brought. His house was in shambles. We started offloading supplies on the shoreline and helping to get them into what was left of his house. During that process, he explained to us that FEMA had set up a command center at a local high school on the island, but that they weren't doing anything to help the residents, not even bringing them water. Instead, he explained that they were driving around using a loudspeaker telling people to stay in their homes. They weren't even helping the homeowners with supplies. This here, we saw this in 2020. They were putting these people under lockdown. This is the purpose. This is the goal for organizations like FEMA now. Come into a disaster area and put the people, the victims of the disaster, on lockdown. Imprison them in their properties and prevent anyone from doing anything to help them that isn't funneled through FEMA so that they can glean their cut. I was skeptical at first while he was telling me all this, but then he said something that broke my heart. He told us that the people of the Keys were all in despair because they'd just seen, weeks before, the overwhelming support for Texas with Hurricane Harvey by the citizens of this country. He and his neighbors on all of the Keys felt like Americans had forgotten about them completely because at this point, 5 days after landfall, all they had seen was FEMA and they were of no help. 5 days after landfall, their houses are destroyed. And they're blockaded on the Florida Keys 5 days later, and the official people there to help them aren't doing anything. The residents were cut off from the outside world. No cellular, no internet, no way to contact anyone or hear of any efforts to try to help them. The only communication they had was from a local radio station on Sugarloaf Key that was broadcasting on AM to the surrounding keys. The man, after hearing that there were citizens trying to bring them help but being refused entry by federal law enforcement, was visibly upset. He and his neighbors really thought the country had abandoned them. He insisted that we get into his waterlogged truck and that he would take us to that radio station so that we could go live on air to tell the citizens trapped in the Keys that we, the American people, were there to help and that the government was trying to stop our efforts. And that's exactly what we did. After that, we were determined to help as many people as we could, but we were met with red tape throughout the whole process and time we were in the Keys. We finally were able to talk to some authorities to let us down to the Faro Blanco Resort and Marathon towards the end of Boot Key. This was the same hotel where state and local authorities were staging their personnel, and they were happy to see us. I was able to coordinate several trucks full of supplies to be brought down to the EOC and Marathon. I was privy to the EOC meeting, but was informed in that meeting that all of the semi-trucks full of food, water, and hygiene supplies were to be turned around and not allowed to be offloaded for distribution by the EOC. The reason they gave us was that these donations were not from companies on their preferred vendors list, and that they would not accept them or give them to the residents of the Keys impacted by the storm. It was at that point that I realized this is all about money. These preferred vendors are getting part of the money being released by the state and federal government for each disaster. In turn, some of the vendors make it on the list because a friend gets them on the list, and in return for getting ridiculously outlandish amounts of compensation for the services they render, they give kickbacks. So accepting outside donations, even though they are on location and can help people now, they would rather let people suffer so they can get their kickbacks. This meeting solidified my resolve to help these people regardless of what the greedy officials wanted. We were going to feed the lower Keys that were being neglected. I diverted all semi-trucks to the Faro Blanco Resort in Marathon and filled the entire first floor with pallets upon pallets of food, water, and essential supplies, and created a food pantry for residents to come and get anything and however much they needed. From local state troopers to the homeless, all were given wheelbarrows and free rein to get anything they needed. We also delivered supplies down to Big Pine Key. We helped establish the tent city on Big Pine Key. Big companies like Tito's Vodka and Wheelan just kept bringing trucks full of everything that was needed. When FEMA finally started handing out boxes of canned goods, limited to one per household, we were filling cars full of food and supplies for people and pets. There's so much more to the story in the Keys and further from there in other storms we worked. The common theme, though, is that the federal government always tries to keep citizens from helping, and the local authorities, the ones that live and work in the area, are always happy to have outside help. I call out to Elon Musk and anyone else who can monetarily help people like myself and those that work with me who have the knowledge and the will to help those devastated by these disasters. Help us sidestep the red tape and get the people the relief they need. We are willing and we are many and we are ready. He's got a bunch of images. And Elon says, wow, sounds like serious government reform is needed. I wonder what one of the focuses of the Department of Government Efficiency is going to be. That idea got a big endorsement today that we'll talk about here in a little bit, but a little bit more from Elon. He says, incompetent leadership costs lives. Here's Tim Kennedy describing what's happening on the ground in North Carolina right now. I'm going to speed this one up. That's a little too much. We'll do 1.25. But I want to play this whole thing.
Are they still not there anywhere? What are you seeing from FEMA in the federal response, if any? I mean, they're present. They're in the way. They are directly interrupting our ability to conduct missions and operations. And I'm not going to disparage anybody because we are trying to work within partner relationships, both government and non-government entities within state and federal and county. I went to put a couple of people into a hotel last night, and they have a security guard at the hotel. And he said, "Oh, we're so sorry. The entire hotel has been booked for federal employees." And I was like, no, I have people that would just pull it out of a mountain that are living out in the hills, and there's not a place for me to put them because we have federal employees that are staying in the hotel. I slept in this white car last night.
So a hotel is entirely occupied by the federal employees who have come down there. So they're not coming down. They're not just coming down to block what's happening. They're also staging themselves and taking up, the federal employees can't go sleep in a tent. They can't sleep in a car. They probably wouldn't get them down there in the first place if that's what was required, because these agencies are staffed by incompetent, horrible people. I'm sure there's some great ones. I'm sure there's some FEMA employees who are just appalled and aghast at all of this. When they get the opportunity to abandon FEMA, they need to. You don't reform an agency like this. You liquidate it. Whatever that means.
I smell like foot and death right now, as does every single person on our team. Not a single one of us slept. We got done maybe at 3 o'clock. The moment the sun was up and we could fly helicopters again, we were back in the air, and we have not stopped. And I was like on the fence about trying to get on this program or not. I want people to understand how incredible this organization is, Save Our Allies, and all the work all of these volunteers are doing. But people, this is biblical level devastation. This is apocalyptic, the things that we see out there.
These are towns up in the mountains that are 10, 20, 40 miles away from any other town. And people on the ground like you need helicopters from the government, and they will not release them. I've heard that time and again. And the people who are delivering aid up in the mountains are now getting requests for body bags. Tim, we got to run.
You are 100% correct. Oh, you're right about that. And there was a no-fly when the president flew in today. We had to land helicopters to not go rescue people so a photo op could take place. And that's a travesty, and that's unconscionable.
If people want to donate, is it SaveOurAllies.com?
That's right. And if somebody is stuck somewhere, or you know somebody that's stuck, you can go to SaveOurAllies.org, and you can click on there. Let us know. We have people going all over in the places that can't be reached. That's why we have special operations people working with partnerships to get into those areas. So go there, support that organization, and also let us know where to go.
Tim Kennedy, you are a great American. Thank you. And I know all of this devastated area thanks you, and Save Our Allies as well. We appreciate you being on the program and just taking a couple moments out of rescuing people to tell us a story. Thank you, Tim Kennedy.
Love you much, Tim Kennedy.
Thank you.
The local people in these areas need to be going into these hotels. It's not even going to be able to be the locals. This isn't on the locals. This is on the people who are showing up to support them. The local sheriffs need to be deputizing people to go into these hotels and throw all the federal employees out. Throw them out. They can go wherever they want. Go do whatever. You're not going to stay in this area. We need this area for the people who are being dragged out of the mountains, dug up out of the mud, who were betrayed by their local governments and the state governments and the federal governments, who were wholly inequipped for this, had no idea that it was coming, and have just completely abandoned them. Throw them out by force. They have no place there. And note that he said Joe Biden finally shows up like 7 days or something after it happened. What does he do? He shows up for a photo op, and they shut everything down. Stop rescuing people so the president can get his photo op. Meanwhile, Trump was down there, and then he left and chose not to go back, specifically because bringing him into that area would have disrupted things. I saw people that were complaining about him not going there, or not being there on the ground, getting pictures and stuff of him working, because especially given the events of the last few months, he's got to travel with a massive security team. He doesn't need to be there. That's leadership. Recognizing when your presence makes things worse and deputizing people who can actually be there on the ground helping. Elon tweeted this morning. Just received this note from a SpaceX engineer helping on the ground in North Carolina. FEMA is not merely failing to adequately help people in trouble, but is actively blocking citizens who try to help. So we're getting this from a SpaceX engineer directly to Elon, and Elon is signal boosting this now. He says, hey, Elon, update here on this on-site of Asheville, North Carolina. We have powered up 2 large operating bases for choppers to deliver goods into hands. We've deployed 300 plus Starlinks, and Outpour has saved many lives. The big issue is FEMA is actively blocking shipments and seizing goods and services locally and locking them away to state they are their own. It's very real and scary how much they have taken control to stop people helping. We're blocked now on the shipments of new Starlinks coming in until we can get an escort from the fire department, but that may not be enough. So Starlink responded immediately to offer free services, and people have been sending their devices down there, paying for them, or just being provided for free. And now FEMA is blocking that action. Can you imagine how radicalizing this would be for someone like Elon? For anybody who's involved in Starlink. Anybody adjacent to them who has been kind of a normie till now, and they're like, oh yeah, there's corruption maybe, and there's bad people in the government, and it operates really inefficiently, and we just need to. But like, this is evil. Someone in the chat said this is like comic book villain level evil. There's no way to frame it in any other way. They're blocking shipments of new Starlinks until they can get an escort from the fire department. Meanwhile, there are people down there by, I don't know, the hundreds, the thousands who are volunteering. You can't get a little posse together to go support this. No, everything has to be funneled through the fucking longhouse. Everything has to be channeled through bureaucracy to keep people safe. Fuck safe. These people aren't safe. Let men risk themselves to help them. And if you won't let them, you're going to be forced to let them. You need to be forced to let them. All of these DEI hires and bureaucrats need to be forcibly removed. That's the magnanimous option. Another video here for you guys.
So I just left the airport. We picked up a flight of pediatric medical supplies that were brought in and are going to North Asheville. We were sitting in the private portion of the airport, and we got to overhear an awful lot. The Army pilots, the Navy pilots, hospital representatives, there was a lot of chatter. While we were there, a private jet landed and 4 FEMA representatives got off. Four people off of a private jet. Come to find out, and you're not going to hear this, so let me tell you. Come to find out, Mission Hospital was told, a private hospital, that they are going to go ahead and be the morgue center for body recovery. All of the Army Chinook helicopters you're seeing flying overhead, they are doing body recovery. FEMA said, and you can take this as a direct quote, said that they are too tied up at the border to send any more representatives. Yeah, at the border. So anyhow, I guess border control trumps whatever's going on here. So they told Mission Hospital they are not sending refrigerated trucks so that they can stack the bodies up. And we also overheard that whatever fatality numbers you are hearing, and this is a quote, go ahead and add a couple of zeros. So FEMA's too busy with the border. A private hospital and the Army are going to take over body recovery, and private individuals with their private helicopters and their private planes are the ones who are flying in supplies. I was at Hangar 10. I was picking up supplies. There was a stack for the Cajun Navy. There was a stack that looked like it was ASPCA. These are all being sent by private individuals. FEMA is doing nothing. Go ahead and share that.
Try not to Fed post. Josh says, would you be surprised to learn that we just recently had our very first woman as head of FEMA? Not surprised remotely. Actually, is this the one that I looked up before? Oh, no, this is someone else. Deanne or Deanie Criswell. There was another organization that was involved that I looked up to see who was the lead on it, and it was a DEI hire. It was like a bald black woman. Looked like she should she looks like she should be at a library. And she's heading up like disaster relief efforts. Just, there is no reforming this. There is simply abolishing these institutions. All the parallel structures, this is the white pill of all of this. All of these structures are being built up in real time to route around the system. And what is revealing to everyone involved in this is that the system is illegitimate and is no longer necessary. Everything that's happening, all the response, all the coverage is all being done without respect to the federal government. They're being routed around in real time. That needs to stick. We can't be apathetic about this and just like let this narrative die and move on to the next thing and just ignore it. Because it will happen again. This is what I said. I said if we're ever to get an accurate accounting of the death toll, it will be because private citizens take it upon themselves to dedicate the next several years to researching it, interviewing thousands of people across hundreds of towns. There's way too much institutional incentive to depress the numbers, given that every new person added to the toll is also added to the federal government's criminal record. And they've already got way too much negative headline equity to manage and an election to fortify. They'll be burning bodies and fudging numbers like no one would believe. When you have entire towns just obliterated, and there's walls of mud drowning things out, entire rivers have been permanently rerouted. You can't just expect the officials to go in there and just figure everything out and tell us the truth about it. Not a chance. They have every incentive imaginable. All of these institutions are going to, there's an institutional consciousness where they recognize when they're under threat. And they're going to go into full cover your ass mode. They're going to suppress and disrupt any sort of reporting or accurate accounting of any of the damages or anything like that. Because it falls directly on their shoulders. They're not going to air themselves out. This is going to have to be done by superior institutions operating in parallel, departing from them. And it's going to take years to even get remotely accurate data on it because of what it's going to require to build these sorts of things up in real time. This is a great opportunity for alternative media networks to make their name. Kind of like what was a Drudge Report with Clinton? You could get some little network that decides to make this their project. And that's how they make their name. That's how they establish themselves with credibility, is leading the charge on this sort of thing. So this is the white pill, is that the competency crisis, while costing unfathomable amounts of capital and human lives, is also creating the opportunities for its replacement. And we need to take advantage of these opportunities. Josh says, I see no way that these rural Appalachians will be able to vote in a month. I'm sure that has no bearing on the show rolling. Look, Ma, new swing states. Well, speaking of that, I've played this guy's stuff on here before. Robert Gouveia, he says, hurricane loophole in North Carolina could allow voting without ID, possibly swaying election results in key swing states. We're going to watch this video.
There is a natural disaster exemption for voter ID. This is from North Carolina, very important swing state, 1 of the 7. If the registered voter cannot produce the ID as required, the registered voter may cast a provisional ballot, so they'll allow them to vote without an ID. Now, there are exceptions to that. Let's see. America is assessing the damage from the hurricane, and people are paying attention to this very interesting provision of the law. From Jerry Cohen, he says there is a natural disaster exemption. Oh, to its new voter ID law for voters who were, quote, the victim of a natural disaster. Oh. So under federal disaster declaration, which is what we're going to look at, this exemption was designed for voters who may have lost their ID, but require a provisional ballot. And so it's interesting, right? If it's a provisional ballot, it means that it kind of doesn't really count, probably, until they verify it, but you can now vote without ID in North Carolina. And so presumably, for the people that don't have IDs, that's a good thing. People who are actually citizens who are following the law, for the law that this is meant to impact. But we know how the Democrats work, right? There's COVID, and suddenly they're bringing in wheelbarrows full of votes. They're like, oh no, all these people were going to die if we couldn't have them come to the ballot box. So I had to go collect them for them, right? You understand how this works. So it feels like a little bit of a deja vu. Never let a crisis go to waste. Here's the rule. Now, requirement for photo ID, this is from North Carolina, very important swing state, 1 of the 7, says photo ID required to vote. Okay, when a registered voter presents a vote in person, the registered voter shall produce voter ID that contain a photograph of the registered voter, right? That's the standard law. Can be a driver's license, special ID card, passport, photo ID card, student ID card, employee ID card, driver's license from, okay, got it. Now, you verify it. After you verify the ID, which is great, we like ID. I like ID checks because we want our citizens to be the only ones voting. Now, a voter shall be permitted to vote unless it doesn't bear a reasonable resemblance, okay, how it works. So what happens if you don't have photo ID? Now, you get a provisional ballot now. If the registered voter cannot produce the ID as required, as they just detailed for us, because they've been taken out with the hurricane, or you're a Democrat ballot collector or whatever, the registered voter may cast a provisional ballot that is counted only if they bring acceptable forms of photograph ID listed later, right? Now, so that sounds good. Of this subsection, no later than the end of business on the business day prior to the canvass of the County Board of Elections is provided under law. So, all right, so they do have to basically rectify this. So they'll allow them to vote without an ID. If they don't have an ID, we're not to the exception yet. So let's just say they show up to the ballot box, no hurricane. Hey, we need your ID for you to cast a vote. They pull it out. I don't have it. I don't have my ID. You don't have anything? No, I don't have anything. I forgot my whole wallet. Oh, well, I want to vote. Okay, well, we have to give you provisional because we can't. So go get your ID and then bring it back. Well, can you go home and get it and just bring it back now so we can give you a regular ballot? No, I can't. I'm out of time. I'm on my way to pick up the kids. And so, all right, here, I'll cast a provisional. All right, then, as long as they bring it back and confirm it, the state board shall provide them a provisional ballot due to the failure to provide photo ID on the deadline to return in order for the vote to be counted. Okay, so by the time they ultimately canvass the final counting of the vote, as long as you bring ID back, you're good. Now, there are exceptions to that. Let's see. The following exceptions are provided for a registered voter who does not produce an acceptable form of ID as required. So there could be a religious objection. If the registered voter does not produce an acceptable form of photograph ID, then they can cast a provisional ballot. All right, so a religious objection. Now, what if there's a reasonable impediment? If a registered voter does not produce a form of photo ID because the registered voter suffers from a reasonable impediment, whatever that is, like, I don't know, having your house blown into oblivion, that prevents the registered voter from presenting photo ID, they may complete an affidavit under penalty of perjury at the voting place and affirm, right, so you don't need ID, you just fill out a form, that they are the same individual who personally appears, that they will cast a provisional ballot while voting in person, and that they suffer from a reasonable impediment that stops them from presenting a photo ID. Now, the registered voter shall also complete a reasonable impediment declaration form, and upon completion of the affidavit, the registered voter may cast a provisional ballot. And then does that ballot need to be cured with photo ID later? That's the question, right? And I'm sure there'll be lawsuits from the Democrats that say, no, they don't. Just count that. Well, now let's see. Natural disaster. Let's see. If a registered voter does not produce an acceptable form of photo ID due to being a victim of a natural disaster occurring within 100 days before an election, ding, 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 that resulted in a disaster declaration by the president or the governor of the state, which I'm sure will happen or has happened, the registered voter may complete an affidavit under penalty of perjury at the voting place. So at the voting place, right? So you're not getting a mail-in is what it looks like. Affirm that the registered voter is the same individual who personally appears at the voting place, will cast the provisional ballot while voting in person, and 3, was a victim of a natural disaster occurring within 100 days of an election. Upon completion of the affidavit, then they may cast a provisional ballot. Let's continue on. Let's see how this works. But the reasonable impediment form, they say they shall adopt a declaration form. So really, I think could be either one of these. Like there's a natural disaster and we cannot get ID to you. The state board shall adopt a reasonable that includes the following: lack of transportation, disability, lack of birth certificate, work family responsibilities, I guess are all reasonable impediments. That's pretty broad. Lost or stolen. Photo ID has not been received yet, or other reasonable impediment, which could be, I guess, virtually anything. So if the county board determines that they voted a provisional ballot only due to the inability to provide proof of ID and the required affidavit, they shall find that the provisional ballot is valid. There it is, right? Unless the county board has grounds to believe the affidavit is false. So that is what gives them the ability to then just have people vote without ID. As long as they fill out the form, then it's going to be considered valid based on a national emergency. And I have no question in my mind that there are many people who legitimately need to use this provision because their house got exploded by the weather. It's terrible. And there are going to be many others who didn't have that happen to them. So the purpose of this is to confirm the person presenting to vote is a registered voter, and there you go. So that's another thing that I'm sure is going to be exploited. So we're going to keep our eye on that. If I had to bet on it, I'd bet on it, that we're going to see lawsuit and litigation, probably from Democracy Docket and Mark Elias, to make sure that this is interpreted very, very broadly so that any ballots without identification are counted. And it's going to be happening in North Carolina, a very important swing state. So very interesting to watch that.
And this from Ben Braddock. He said, Federal Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg has shut down aid flights into Western North Carolina. A NOTAM has been issued by the FAA that won't allow anyone not approved by the state to fly aid missions. They said they would give permission, but they're not being cooperative at all. At least 6 pilots from Virginia are being prevented from getting their aid shipments into Asheville Regional Airport. And I said, if you think butt plug and Mayorkas and their proxies wouldn't slow walk federal aid and obstruct civilian aid to a key swing state to kill off voters and facilitate fraud to maintain power, you must have just awakened from a decade-long coma. They wouldn't even hesitate. Whether this was planned or they're just going to capitalize on the opportunity, this is absolutely an opportunity that they're going to be capitalizing upon. Now, I think that Trump has paths to victory that don't include North Carolina. North Carolina was a swing state, wasn't in the bag. So if you want to evaluate this on a strict electoral basis, like, I don't think that this is sufficient to turn the election necessarily. But they will absolutely try, which will also give ample surface area for legal attacks, which is, you might roll your eyes at it, but this is how it's going to have to be. I've been saying I think it's a 70% chance Trump wins in the courts, 25% chance he wins outright, 5% chance that there's hanky-panky. I think I'm going to upgrade that to like 80-15-5. I think there's an 80% chance Trump wins, but he has to win through the courts. So this is something that all of our citizen journalists, all of our autists, you got a whole new project. We have our guys willing to signal boost these kinds of things. They're already talking about it. This is a mainstream conversation that Democrats are going to try to use this mass death of Americans to orchestrate the steal of another election. That cannot be allowed to happen. That cannot be allowed to happen. Every one of us in our own little way can play a part in making sure that doesn't happen. This is the way that democracy works now. We need to drive this narrative. I'm going to do it all I can. You guys send me anything that you find talking about anything like this, and I'm going to consume it as much as possible. I'm going to have 40 plus hours of driving next week. So send me anything to listen to, anything to keep track of. But this is absolutely the way that these people will operate. Some of them, some of the leadership of these sorts of things, like I think that it's important to remember that a lot of the people involved in these sorts of operations their motivation in this is not, I'm taking part in a complex, a fraudulent operation motivated by deep evil to abuse and disenfranchise people. They genuinely don't think that way. They're not operating that way. Some of them are. Buttigieg, Mayorkas, absolutely. I want to keep the YouTube channel, so I'm going to leave some things unsaid. But we talked about light poles. And I'll just connect those ideas for you. Elon tweeted something very interesting today. He's tweeted a number of interesting things. He quote tweeted AJ Torville, who's an interesting one, I guess, to keep an eye on. I've started seeing a lot of stuff from him lately. Elon Musk picked my X logo design for X. He's one of these accounts that Elon regularly signal boosts. They received a temporary authorization from the FCC to conduct Starlink direct-to-cell testing with T-Mobile statewide in Oregon, Nevada, and Kansas, i.e. your mobile phone connects directly to a Starlink satellite in space. Think emergencies like Hurricane Helene. Elon said, Starlink connectivity directly from our satellites to mobile phones will be profoundly important and save many lives when there are natural or human-driven disasters. What an odd thing to say. Or human-driven. It's very interesting that he included that in there. That was a very intentional choice. And it's great because it's kind of ambiguous. You know, you could create some sort of explanation for what this is. Oh, you know, like maybe an arsonist, or, you know, there's some things, some of these mass disasters happen because they're human driven. But in this particular one, the way that all these incentives line up, where suddenly a huge swath of the heart of America gets obliterated by a like once in a millennium type of storm that just so happens to wipe out deep red districts and creates great surface area for both electoral fortification and confiscation of assets and resources. That is a fantastic coincidence. And we know that weather modification is a mainstream thing. Like everyone acknowledges now. Yeah, we could change the weather. Remember Dubai? They did the cloud seeding and they like drowned themselves. They're like, whoops, it's more powerful than we thought it was. You got Augustus Dorico with his startup Rainmaker on cloud seeding. Marjorie Taylor Greene even tweeted the other day, yesterday I think. She said, of course they can control the weather. Do you think that they could either seed a hurricane or amplify the effects of a hurricane? I have no doubt in my mind that they could. Did they? Probably unprovable. Technically. But certain things just don't need to be proven factually. Whether they did it intentionally or are reacting to this massively convenient happening, the result is still the same. They must go. Probably the most enraging clip I've seen of all of these. And I think this is, I've got one more, I think I've got one more rage-inducing clip here, and then I will, I'll back off on the rage bait, because I don't think that it's good to wallow in this, but I've got a thread here about why we need to look at these things. We can't just ignore them and write them off as just politics.
You can thank Donald Trump and Elon Musk for that.
You know, I've been going all over South Carolina like most people. I hadn't slept much. But look what's going on in Israel. Our friends in Israel are surrounded by people that want to kill them, destroy them, a second Holocaust in the making. And Biden says be proportional. What is the proportional response to people who want to kill you and your family? God. They're running out of ammunition in Israel. We have to help our friends to keep the war over there from coming here. The world is...
I don't give a fuck about the war in Israel. Entire American towns were just obliterated in his neck of the woods. And this is what he chooses to focus on. We're going to have digital tombstones, and this video is going to be played on his tombstone. This is betrayal. I've been traveling around, and the thing you choose to talk about is fucking Israel. Lampposts. I said we can't afford to look away from these things that enrage us. It's not just politics. Don't indulge the rage, but recognize that it is a divinely gifted reaction to beholding the evils of gross betrayal. It's a gift because it is what motivates and focuses you to do the exceedingly difficult things that must be done. Millions of innocent Americans are like children sold into slavery by their own parents. A leader can commit no greater sin than to betray his people. Someone must pay that debt. It's easy to call for vengeance, but vengeance only pays a debt with another debt. And debt of all sorts, financial, metaphysical, moral, spiritual, is already overrunning our world. This is why the task before us is so difficult. We must channel that rage that calls forth the demand for bloodthirsty vengeance into leadership. Our people don't need mercenaries to obliterate their enemies. They need leaders who are in it for the long haul. They need builders who transmute their passions into discipline and foresight. They need men who will repent for them and redeem our home. We must build. Be enraged by Lindsey Graham. He is enraging. But he is revealing by this, by choosing to campaign on this issue in this moment with a literal fucking video of American infrastructure being obliterated and people dying. And he has the audacity to pivot to Israel. This is treason. This is open treason. And it must be handled as such. But he is revealing that he no longer matters. his life is of no value. He must be replaced by someone who will actually take responsibility for his people and not plunder and betray them. Because he's got videos of him doing unconscionable things that he doesn't want made public. Pete says, Graham's attitude tells me they're going to try and kill Trump again. Yes, absolutely. Here's how the ostensible president responds.
What do the states in the storm zone need, Mr. President? Okay. What do the states in the storm zone, what do they need after what you saw today?
Oh, in the storm zone?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what storm you're talking about. They're getting everything.
I don't know what storm you're talking about. If you're a totally blue-pilled journalist, just obsessed with your White House press corps access, and you're asking the fucking president, and he's like, what storm? What storm are you talking about? If you have a pulse, you've got to be horrified by this. He doesn't even know what storm you're talking. What storm? You just got back from there. You senile motherfucker.
They need. What we're talking about. They're getting everything they need. And they're very happy across the board.
They're getting everything they need, and they're very happy across the board. This entire cabal of people propping up him and Kamala needs to be fired into the sun. They don't just need to lose an election. They need to be fired into the motherfucking sun. Meanwhile, CNN talking about Trump. This is a little bit older clip, September 30th.
He is being treated not just as a former president, but almost as though he is a sitting president. As Boris, you just noted, getting a briefing from FEMA, getting a briefing from the National Guard. That is not something that is typically just offered to a candidate. They are treating him as though he is a former president who is there to help. And one thing that I had noticed earlier during our 1 p.m. conversation was that Donald Trump did not have that much to offer in terms of resources since he is not a sitting president. But I will note that he and the campaign say that they have arrived in that area with trucks full of supplies that they plan on giving out. So there is something there for them to offer. He also said that he had a tanker truck full of gasoline, which obviously, if you've ever covered one of these storms, you understand that one of the first things and hardest things to come by is gasoline. So he said that he was going to be giving that out. He is clearly taking this seriously as a politician is on the ground, trying to show that he is there in support of the people on the ground in Georgia.
This is from CNN. Do not black pill. Be patient. Be disciplined. Be wise. Do not black pill. If CNN is saying this, that's a deep signal. People are seeing it. Now, there's a link here from an Elon tweet, but I don't think that I can click it in any way. Space Prussian linked it in the comment here, but I can just show the comment. I can't actually click it. It's an Elon tweet. So let me go look and see if there's something that he's tweeted recently. Space Prussian, if you're still listening, while I'm looking for this, you could DM it to me, and I'll see if I can open it. Oh, come on. Okay, here. Let me check. I can't copy it. I don't have any way of actually clicking the link or copying it or accessing the text in it. See if you can DM it to me on Twitter, and I'll open it. Because if you're posting it here, I feel like it's probably worth looking at. The next thing that I have is some stuff on the strike that happened briefly. Here it is. Nope, that's not it. I just got a spam tweet, a spam DM. Ah, very interesting. Okay. Share this. I think this is it here. Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir. Elon says, just received this text 20 minutes ago. The level of belligerent government incompetence is staggering. So he said, WTF, FEMA is both incompetent and stopping people from helping. How can I help? The response he got is, it's true. They are now about to shut down the airspace to regulate the private choppers we are riding in to deliver Starlink and supplies. We are pushing back with Trump team as well to help us, but not looking good. We need help to get word out about FEMA. We spoke with Ivanka and handed out Starlinks with her yesterday, but FEMA then showed up and started blocking us. The largest concern for us here is the FAA throttling flights for our choppers where they are requiring to-from information in mission now to deliver a discrete code. Doing this takes a long time and is very cumbersome to the ops. This is the largest concern and most help we could use. Pete Buttigieg, butt gag himself, says, no one is shutting down the airspace and FAA doesn't block legitimate rescue and recovery flights. If you're encountering a problem, give me a call. And Elon said, there are hundreds of reports of FEMA and FAA blocking flights. This literally just happened. I will follow you. Please DM me the number to call. So that was 38 minutes ago. And then a little bit later, he says, still waiting. The helicopter is trying to land to deliver critical supplies. What's the number to call? Fucking crassins. They're trying to land in an unsafe location. We tried to land here, and law enforcement here waved us off. He says, Purple Circle is the officer that sits there to wave us off. We had food, water, and 2X Starlinks in hand, and they wouldn't let us land. This group we are with is badass. They said today we'll force them to take supplies and just land. I'll keep you posted. God bless Elon Musk, man. God bless him for taking responsibility here. I'm sure Secretary Pete, give me a call. He's going to send him to his fucking secretary. Thank you, Space Prussian. Appreciate you getting that on our radar here. And I have all of these things. I have all these tabs. I've saved all of them. As soon as I'm done with the show today, I'll be tweeting out the master thread for all the different videos and all the tweets and everything that I've covered in the show and that I'm going to continue because I've got a whole bunch more stuff to get into here. But if you want to get that, go to @RealKingPilled afterwards, and I'll tweet out the master thread so you can go find these, watch them yourselves, read them, share them. Keep amplifying this. This is the role that we can play. Take the peasant pill. Take the digital peasant pill. Glean these things. It was interesting going home and being among a bunch of normies who aren't on Twitter and realizing the extent to which they're they're months behind what's actually happening. This is the service that you can provide. Get your family on Twitter. Get them following Twitter. This is where the news happens now. Get them there. Tell them if they want to be aware of what's happening, they need to be on Twitter. That's where all the important things are happening. Everything is downstream from that. And the more people that we can get aware of these things going on, this isn't like a wake up the normies thing. It's just get people aligned. Get everyone moving, everyone following, everyone aware of what's happening. There's a lot of people who are operating under very old narratives. I hear people talking about it. I'm just like, oh man, there's so much that I want to tell you, but you don't even have the context for me to begin explaining it all. But the shit is happening. Pete says, noblesse oblige. That's exactly what this is. This is leadership. I don't care what you think of Elon Musk. This is leadership. This is the way that wealthy, powerful people must operate in order for us to have a civilization. He is now modeling it. And Elon is a hell of a model. So Jason at Miranchuk Now has been talking about Build-A-Caesar for a long time. And with this strike that kicked off, Ron DeSantis is modeling as part of this Build-A-Caesar. So he says, at my direction, the Florida National Guard and the Florida State Guard will be deployed to critical ports affected by the strike to maintain order and, where possible, resume operations. It is unacceptable for the Biden-Harris administration to allow supply chain interruptions to hurt people who are reeling from a Category 4 hurricane.
At my direct
I'm going to speed this up just a wee bit.
direction, the Florida National Guard and Florida State Guard will be deployed to critical ports affected to maintain order and, if possible, resume operations, which would otherwise be shut down during this interruption. Florida Department of Transportation is coordinating calls with seaport rail and trucking partners to ensure that all are prepared and positioned appropriately to limit disruptions to the supply chain in other areas should this continue. I'm also directing Florida Department of Transportation to temporarily waive the collection of tolls and other fees for commercial vehicles using public highways in Florida and waiving the size and weight restrictions normally governing vehicle transportation for the duration of this emergency. This will help expedite the movement of goods that have been impacted from seaports to intermodal logistics centers, distribution centers, and delivery points, and very well may help offset additional costs incurred by operation during this period. Finally, I'm directing the Florida Highway Patrol to manage the flow of traffic from all Florida seaports and adjacent roads and highways as needed to further expedite the flow of goods that are currently being held up. This will include the provision of law enforcement escorts for commercial motor vehicles by FHP officers upon request. And I would say that this is something that would have significant impacts on the nation's economy anyways, but to have this happen in a way that could negatively impact people that are reeling from a Category 4 hurricane, that is just simply unacceptable. So it really is incumbent upon the Biden-Harris administration to do everything in their power to ensure that these goods are where we need to be, that people are not left hanging out in the cold waiting for these goods if they're sitting in the ocean somewhere and they're not being able to be used here in the state of Florida or in Georgia or North Carolina or where people are going to desperately need this. We need to accelerate. We have no time for delays. Biden-Harris has a responsibility to stand up for the storm victims, stand up for the people who've had their homes damaged or who've lost their homes, and make sure they have what they need to get back on their feet.
This is brilliant. This is terrific executive leadership at the state level. So my take on this, well, let me play you guys this video. I'm sure some of you have already seen it. It's the one that was going mega viral of the International Longshoremen's Association president, Harold Daggett. This guy is a throwback. Joshua Steinman, very good poster, former member of Trump's National Security Council. He's been on this. He says, listen up and listen good. International Longshoremen's Association president Harold J. Daggett is about to give you a masterclass in power. Not fake op-ed writing, Davos flying, adults are back power. Not Harvard-educated norms of state behavior power. Real power.
But today's world, it's changing into the future. They're not making millions no more. They're making billions. And they're spending it fast as they make it. I want a piece of that for my men. Because when they made their most money was during COVID. When my men had to go to work on those piers every single day, when everybody stayed home and went to work. Not my men. They died out there with the virus. We all got sick with the virus. We kept them going. From Canada to Maine to Texas, Great Lakes, Puerto Rico, now the Bahamas, everybody went to work during COVID. Nobody stayed home. Well, I want to be compensated for that. I'm not asking for the world. They know what I want. They know what I want. And if they don't, well, then I have to go into the street and we have to fight for what we rightfully deserve. These people today don't know what a strike is. Right. When my men hit the streets, from Maine to Texas, every single port, a lockdown. You know what's gonna happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. And in today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
This is leadership. This is what political power looks like. Say what you want about this guy's politics, about the impacts of the strike, whatever. This is a man who knows how to advocate for the people that he stands to represent. This guy says, find yourself a president that will look out for America the way Harold looks out for his longshoremen. Exactly. I never cared about the details of our ports until now. Now I want them automated ASAP. That's nice. Seems like a thug to me. Welcome to power politics. He and his boys weren't the only ones who still went to office during COVID. Many of us did, and we aren't being given a 77% raise now. Exactly. You have no power. He, on the other hand, does. That's the takeaway from this. This is what it looks like to represent your men, to advocate for them. I'm sure the dude's corrupt as the day is long. Like that's how this shit works. Of course he's corrupt. Of course he's making bank off of all of this. Of course. That's what leadership in this sort of political system looks like. And I don't think that the timing of this is an accident. With respect to the hurricane, I think the hurricane is actually probably what broke it. That's why it got suspended. If the hurricane hadn't hit and caused all of that, this would have gone off a lot better. I don't have any proof for this whatsoever. This is purely speculating and intuition, but I think this is the October surprise, or one of them. There's so many October surprises we're going to get, but I think this is one of the October surprises. Not from the Biden-Harris administration, against the Biden-Harris administration. Waylon Bro says, this guy chose to throw a fit during a hurricane fallout. To hell with that guy. And see, that's where I think that it wasn't, that's why it got broken. It wasn't going to get broken. And I've got a pretty low opinion of the actual leadership. The executive branch of the U.S. is basically being run by a bunch of like millennial theater kids right now. I don't think they even have the capacity to negotiate something like this. I really highly doubt that this was something that the administration negotiated. This was bringing the administration to its knees, backing it into a corner, and capitalizing on the opportunity to create a devastating PR problem for the executive branch. And the fact that it happened to coincide with a hurricane is why it sort of fell flat a little bit, and they were forced to negotiate something. Interestingly, they suspended it until January 15th. Which is a very interesting time. So what we're probably going to get is we're going to have some sort of, this is my prediction, we're going to be having a dramatic legal battle drawing out over the election certification. And in the midst of that, we're going to be looking at another strike coming on. And the actual president is going to be the one negotiating it. Not the fortified one, the actual one. I think this is an ace in the hole. So U.S. dock workers agree to suspend strike until January 15, 2025. Tony Kennett says DeSantis humiliated Biden by announcing that he'd send in the Florida National Guard to guard and run the ports, and hours later the strike disintegrated. Amazing. John Conrad has a great couple of tweets here. He says, keep getting DMs on the same two questions. One, what ended the port strike? And two, was it Ron DeSantis calling the National Guard? Here's the timeline from my sources. Up until 14:09 on Tuesday, all my reliable sources were telling me the ILA was digging in for a long fight. Types Fast, who we've shared a number of threads from, who's the guy who's been on top of this for a long time, he says he has the best ocean data in the world. He was the first to make a bold counter call, quote, with 80% probability it will be over by Tuesday. His company, Flexport, has some of the best experts in the business and can see in real time if ships are diverting or not. That, combined with smart staff who understand history, political, and economic issues, is likely what drove the prediction. Ryan also didn't hesitate to collect information directly from the experts. The person with the best trucking data, trucks need to start diverting too, is at Freight Alley, and he echoed Ryan's optimism yesterday. Yesterday afternoon, Mirko Glianos started warning us at G-Captain to be ready. Biden then made a statement of support of the union, and Secretary Pete applied pressure on USMX at 8 p.m. D.C. was finally waking up. Yesterday afternoon, I received information from a source that Daggett was getting death threats and public sentiment was against him. Some of his advisors were suggesting he sit down for a deal. Later, I got a confirmation from another source along the same lines. There were two problems with the information that prevented me from making a prediction. One, other sources were adamant the ILA would not budge on automation. And two, we got a statement from ILA confirming that Daggett was thrown by the backlash, but it said he was a combat veteran and a fighter who wouldn't back down. This morning, more sources confirmed that DC was waking up and ILA was breaking due to the backlash. Mercoglianos got solid information a deal would be made. I published the article on G-Captain, TikTok Fury and death threats while ILA union boss Daggett fold or double down. I also talked to a source in the Trump camp who assured me DJT had deep knowledge of the issues from his time as a New York City real estate developer and was working the problem. Interestingly, a pic was dropped on the timeline of Trump meeting with Daggett several months ago, and that they talked about this very issue. And this is like, you think that Daggett and Trump wouldn't have respect for one another and be able to hash something like this out and be able to speak the same language to each other? No details how, but told to watch for something that would move the needle. Talked to Mercoglianos again, and he was confident a deal was coming soon. Around lunch, I finally got a hold of a Democrat source who said it's close, but there's a sticking point. I assumed it was automation, but they wouldn't confirm. At 12:52, Ron DeSantis called the National Guard to take over the ports in Florida. Had a long conversation with Sal Mercoglianos and Mike Schuler around lunch, and confidence it would end was high, but nobody was sure exactly when. I disappeared into meetings for the rest of the afternoon. I was hesitant to make a call because numerous sources said the ILA was still dug in over automation. 17:18, Sal calls it out, scooping everyone. Mike Schuler gets it up on G-Captain just after it becomes official. So what exactly happened? It's hard to say for sure, but I'm confident the ILA expected public support and the backlash flipped the script. And I think that's because of the hurricane. It's one thing to be striking and causing economic headaches. You could capitalize on that, though. You can wield that against the administration. The administration needs to resolve this, and it's putting massive public pressure on them and forcing them to deal with a massive crisis in the midst of everything else. But add in a hurricane and all the devastation and the way that's emotionally affecting people, and that suddenly changes the tenor of the thing dramatically. And I think that's what happened. He said, the rest is just my informed speculation. Biden did a good job threading the needle by supporting the union, but applying gentle pressure behind the scenes. Secretary Pete helped by finally stepping in. A source close to Trump told me his New York City real estate meant he understood the dynamics well. While it's unclear if he directed DeSantis, he likely gave at least tacit approval for calling in the National Guard. Sources told me the deal was nearly done, but no one was sure if it would take hours or days. DeSantis' move likely sealed the deal, removing any lingering doubt. Both Trump and Kamala did the country a favor by not turning this into a political fight. Trump had more to gain, but also more risk. If the strike dragged on, he could have picked up populist support, but Kamala might have taken full credit if a deal was struck right before the election. Kamala stayed quiet, but with Marty Walsh as a close advisor, a union pro, she likely knew more than she let on. I think all parties made fairly smart moves, and I'm very glad nobody leveraged this hard for political gain. That's a win for the entire nation. All this, plus a very civil and smart VP debate, gives me renewed hope for our future. He said, all my best sources on the inside, as well as my extremely smart friends, Types Fast, so these are all the Twitter handles, at Types Fast, at Freight Alley, at Mercoglianos, and at Mike Schuler, gave clear warnings. Do I regret not breaking the news early? Not at all. What made me hesitate most was the automation issue, and that has not been settled. All we got was an agreement on pay and broad strokes for a temporary return to work until that great prize fight is announced. I think this was smart for the ILA. It, 1, lets public outrage settle. 2, lets them regroup and rethink strategy. 3, shows they are reasonable. 4, likely gives them some political credits with both parties. And 5, lets them lock in much higher pay. USMX wins because there was the ability for ILA and Biden to hammer home the fact that ship owners are far wealthier than Daggett. What did I get wrong? Both the previous port congestion crisis and the Houthis closing the Red Sea led to huge profits. All signs pointed to more windfall profits if they extended the strike. So why didn't they? I don't know. I hope it was from the goodness of their hearts, but I doubt it. 1, my gut tells me it's because the world is dry kindling right now and they don't want to light a match. 2, making a reasonable deal also gives them political points they can use if either party doubles down on tariffs or a trade war. 3, America is the world's #1 importer and is one of the biggest exporters. Angering your best customers is never a great business strategy. And 4, they still need the U.S. Navy's help in the Black and Red Seas. So is that it? Game over? Not even close. The big battle over automation is still on. Luckily for us, it's just postponed till after the election. Final thoughts? Man, this got off to a bad start, but thankfully cooler, rational minds prevailed. Well played by all sides, and thank God it didn't become a political election year football for either candidate. I don't think that's necessarily true, but because I think, to me, the election is not November 5. The election, properly speaking, is November 5 to January 20 approximately. This is going to be an issue again. He said, someone posted this question, screenshot attached, about Ron's ego, then deleted it, but here's my answer. So the question was DeSantis part of the coordinated pressure on the ILA or just jumping to the podium to grab a spotlight knowing full well a deal was almost there? He says, impossible to say for sure, but I think it was politically smart, and I'd wager Trump knew what was going on. It likely helped close the deal, but it also did a few things for Republicans. One, showed strength, which the Republican base loves. Two, sent a signal that the hurricane victims matter. Three, elevates Ron DeSantis' spotlight, and helps boost his ego. And four, it keeps Biden and Harris from declaring a clear win. If Ron hadn't done that, then Biden could have taken all the credit. This move gave them a strong counterpoint. Should they have just stayed out completely? Maybe, but I think we can all be thankful it came from DeSantis instead of Trump directly. Yeah, kind of revealing his priors here. That would have made it way too political to assure a deal that does benefit the entire nation. So that's the stuff that I've got so far on the strike. I was expecting it to be a lot bigger issue because I didn't expect it to get suspended, and I was fully prepared for things to get really, really rough. And I don't think that it's been resolved. I think it's been suspended. But absolutely the biggest winner out of all of this is the GOP, broadly speaking. And I think that it's good that Trump hasn't been, for PR reasons, it's good to not let this distract from the hurricane crisis. That needs to be the focus. This has been taken off the table for now. And I think it's good that it's taken off the table for now, because of the how much it would worsen the effect of the hurricane. But it's going to come up again. And Trump is going to hold all the cards when it does. So I've got a few other interesting little tidbits to get into. This is a long show, but I owe you one because I've been gone for so long. This is from Raig Nationalist. He says, incredible if this is true. It looks like the U.S. government is using DoD flights chartered for transfer of the remains of service personnel to bring Haitians into the U.S. So here in Port-au-Prince is this flight right here. Here's the contract summary. Department of Defense contracted with Kalita Charters, LLC. And it's hard to see here, but it says... I can't quite read it. Transport of hero remains is the important phrase right here. And there was someone who reminded me of this in the chat, and I remember hearing about this. I don't remember which conversation it was, so I couldn't go find a exact source for it. But this guy here, Hyperborean Gaucho, says there's an Eric Prince interview where he talks about how he was approached to organize this for an NGO, but they were very vague about what it would actually be, but involved constant flights between Port-au-Prince and the USA. Once he figured it out, he refused. This is just absolutely ghoulish behavior. These people must go. This was another story that was going around a little bit. The Pentagon, this is from Natalie Winters, the Pentagon just revised domestic work guidelines, including on assassinations. In 2020, it said, under no circumstances shall any DoD component or DoD employee engage in or conspire to engage in assassination. And now in 2024, they've changed it to no DoD civilian employee or member of the armed forces will engage in or conspire to engage in assassination. So what's left out of this? Subcontractors. So DoD component, and I confirmed this with a source who would know, very close source. A DoD component would include contractors. There's civilian, military, and contractor. The language change here now just covers civilians and military. Civ and mil. CTR, contractor, is no longer covered under this, which is a very odd change to make. Now, the source that I spoke with said, without being able to read the entire thing, it's a little tough to ascertain exactly why this would be the case. But the source did note that this could be because that there's been the federal government has been redoing a lot of their contracts, especially for with respect to contractors. And the person I was talking to has worked a lot with contractors and said that what this could be, if there is a justification for this beyond, like, the source said that updating this language like this is done for a reason. And if you're updating this language to narrow the scope of people who are being explicitly obligated to not engage in assassination and opening up at a new demographic of people who are apparently not restrained, there would be a reason for that. It wouldn't just be done kind of willy-nilly. What the source said is that this could be because these sorts of clauses are now being handled on a contract per contract basis with the contractors. That isn't entirely reassuring, because now they're, instead of having a blanket policy, the policy is being jiggered on an individual case. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the federal government is explicitly opening up this possibility. It can still be managed on a contract to contract basis. But I gotta admit that this is a very strange thing to release. And the timing in particular is very odd. You would think that there'd be someone in there who would be like, maybe we should not do this right now. Maybe this isn't the climate for it. Whether you want to attribute that to incompetence or malevolence, it doesn't really matter, because the net effect is the same. We need to eliminate incompetent leaders just as much as we need to eliminate malevolent leaders. So I got a couple of other Elon things here. SpaceX crew arrives at International Space Station to retrieve stranded astronauts.
Crew 9 now aboard the International Space Station and joining Expedition 72.
Upstate Federalist said, if anyone's keeping score, in the last 72 hours, Elon Musk has bailed out the U.S. government in North Carolina and now in fucking space. The alternate infrastructure is being built. It's inevitable that when you get as degenerate and corrupt of an institution as the federal government and all of its proxies has become, it's inevitable that those nodes are going to be routed around. And it is happening. The question now is just the extent to which it's going to be fully routed around, and versus to what extent is it going to be taken over and stripped down and refocused, let's say. But this is a white pill. Another couple Elon things here. Starting to notice a bit of a trend in Elon's tweets lately. And wokeness is allowing this to go on for 3+ years is not just impeachable, it's treason. And Elon agrees. This is insane. Elon says treason. And again, Jason DeBolt says, the Democrats are literally charging Americans billions of dollars to completely disenfranchise us and create single-party authoritarian rule like in California. This is outrageous. Nothing is more undemocratic than this. This is increases in illegal immigration populations in swing states under the Harris-Biden administration. From @ALX on Twitter. Georgia, up 401%. North Carolina, up 446%. Pennsylvania, up 241%. Arizona, up 734%. Nevada, up 562%. Michigan, up 775%. Wisconsin, up 461%. This is in the last 3 years. Elon says, yes, they are literally using your tax dollars to import voters and disenfranchise you. It's happening right in front of your eyes. And FEMA used up its budget ferrying illegals into the country instead of saving American lives. Treason. The future head of the Department of Government Efficiency is sure making use of the word treason a lot. And I don't imagine that he's doing it lightly. All right, I got three last little things here. I got a video and then a couple of white pills. Elite panic. This is an interesting concept, and I think that he's bang on in his description of this. What we are seeing is elite panic.
So a lot of people have been surprised that they're using the police to defend grocery stores full of food that's going to go bad from people who are starving. You know, like this guy who had his own helicopter was going out and rescuing people and dropping off supplies, got shut down by the fire department. They said they're going to have him arrested if he continues to rescue people. Perhaps you've also heard about people like getting flack for trying to feed people. You know, restaurants that were out of power cooking up the food that they had before it went bad. The thing is, this is a phenomenon known as elite panic that is well known in disaster studies. You know, those who study natural disasters, man-made disasters. The ruling class likes to propagate the narrative that in disasters, people resort to their base nature and they loot, and it's chaos without them to enforce you know, social norms and rules. But that is actually not the case. People tend to come together and help each other out. But the ruling class doesn't like this. We can't have people going around realizing that they can meet their own needs without the ruling class. You know, just like they like to call themselves job creators, as if nobody would do anything without them telling people what to do. So when there's a disaster, they like to come in with guns and tell everybody to stop what they're doing. Which oftentimes makes things worse. If you go back to the San Francisco earthquake at the beginning of the 20th century, half the city was on fire. There's a lot of people who were hurt. There was no immediate government response. And people were like running into burning houses that were about to burn to the ground, and rescuing food and medical supplies, gathering people in open spaces like parks so they could feed people and tend to their wounds and stuff.
Hold on, my bad. Browser just spazzed out. Audio started playing all over the place. Let me back this up. Okay, share the screen again.
Rescuing food and medical supplies, gathering people in open spaces like parks so they could feed people and tend to their wounds and stuff. And the governor, he didn't like that. So he sent in soldiers to shoot the looter. Anyway, for those of you who were surprised, I'm not. This is what the government does during disasters. This is bad governance. People should be allowed to help each other. That's not to say we don't want a government response, but this authoritarian, at the point of a gun disaster response is always counterproductive and ends up getting people hurt and unalive. If you want to learn more about this, Google elite panic. It's a well-researched topic. It's a well-understood phenomenon.
Has this based Vosh? That's kind of what I thought too when I saw him. I don't know how based he is. You know, I got a there's a lot of Reddit going on here, but I think he's identified exactly what it is. And there's malevolent reasons for this, and there's also just like bureaucratic red tape reasons. Like we come in and when you have incompetent people in charge of disaster relief, well, they're not going to be able to manage a bunch of different variables and make decisions in real time on the fly and coordinate lots of different people. So they just want to come in, lock everything down, and they think this is what response is just securing everything. Lock everything down, control it all so that we could do something. But there's nothing to do after that because it requires people who are willing to take risks, who are willing to recognize that in certain situations, you just have to do stuff. You just have to solve the problem. And if you make a mistake and someone gets hurt, so be it. But with the safetyism that has taken over, well, if we're going to, as a federal government organization or a contracted organization, if we permit certain activities and then someone gets hurt, well, we're going to be held legally liable for them. So now we have an incentive to where our job has now turned into protecting our institutions from liability, which means not doing anything. Because it's much easier to prosecute someone for doing something than for not doing something. To hold someone responsible for not doing something requires a lot more lawfare, a lot more work, and a lot more proof. It's much more expensive and much more difficult. It's much easier when you have a thing. You did a thing, and we're going to hold you responsible for doing this thing. We can point directly to the facts, so we can indicate your culpability directly. But when you're going to prosecute someone for not doing a thing, you're kind of tasked with proving a negative, legally speaking. We have to prove that you did not act in this particular way, which also requires being able to prove, this is like the shortcomings of the legal system, proving that had you done this thing, it would have had this outcome, which means you not doing it leaves you culpable for that outcome not happening. This is why, like, there's no simple, easy answer to this kind of situation, except for men stepping up and taking responsibility, consequences be damned. Sort it out later on, solve the problem. All of our institutions have been developed to prevent, to suppress that instinct. This is the Longhouse. Suppressing the instinct to solve problems in the name of solving a problem. Men have to solve problems. Actual men. Not women or longhoused men. Actual men. And once an institution starts behaving this way, the expiration date has been set. We may not know exactly what it is, but no institution can survive this sort of thing, especially as it keeps compounding. Couple white pills to end us with. This should be not surprising at all to those of you who've been listening to Stormy Waters, talking to Jason Mirentruck or Jay Burden. But JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon praises Elon Musk's Government Efficiency Commission proposal. We really need it. Jamie Dimon is a Doge fan, the Department of Government Efficiency, which I really, really hope is what they actually name it. I saw a lot of people that were saying that Jamie Dimon endorsed Trump. There is no formal endorsement from him. This is a Trump endorsement. Jamie Dimon endorsed Trump at Davos in January. Go watch that clip. Just Jamie Dimon, Davos. I think it was broadcast by BBC. He gave some pretty strong words about how we need to stop demonizing our fellow Americans and treating MAGA Republicans as if they're evil people. They're not. This was a strong statement for someone of Jamie Dimon's status to make at Davos. But now he's come out and explicitly praised Elon Musk's Government Efficiency Commission proposal. So here's the article from Fox Business. Share screen. Oh, come on. Ads. Pause. JP Morgan. Oh, my God. I hate ads. Don't run on this page. Simply blocking it or simply pausing it apparently isn't sufficient. So I have to click the ad, blah, 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 blah. Don't run on pages on this site. It doesn't actually give me the option to do that. Small number covering part of the icon. I don't actually have that icon here. It just tells me I can pause on this site. Normally, it does give me the ability to okay, you know what I'm going to do? Well, I can read most of it here. Actually, I can read the whole thing. So we're just going to do this. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon praises Elon Musk's plan for a government efficiency commission, calling it a very good idea while highlighting the need for heightened government accountability. In an interview with CNBC at the India Investor Summit, Prashant Nair brought up Musk's proposal for an efficiency task force to audit the federal government. So Elon, this idea about having an efficiency commission, I actually like the idea. I think governments have to become more efficient, more competent, and look at when they take money, what do they get for it, Diamond said. I actually think it's a very good idea. Diamond said the idea reminded him of Al Gore's Reinventing Government initiative launched in 1993 to make the federal government work better. Quote, we really need to do it. In America, we will do it, I'm sure, Diamond added. A lot of the other countries need to do the same thing, which is an interesting thing to say. He's not just endorsing it. He's saying, yeah, we're going to do it. But like, yeah, we're going to do it here in America. Other countries need to do that as well. Other countries need to be making their governments function more efficiently as well. His comment comes less than a month after former President Trump endorsed Musk's proposal for a government efficiency task force, revealing that he would appoint the billionaire entrepreneur to lead the panel if elected president. The Government Efficiency Commission would conduct a financial and performance audit of the federal government and would look to track down fraud and improper payments made from government programs. It would then provide recommendations for drastic reforms aimed at promoting efficiency, Trump said, with the goal of eliminating fraud and improper payments within 6 months of the commission being formed. It's a very specific timeline. The Tesla CEO acknowledged his agreement to serve on the commission, writing on X that, quote, I look forward to serving America if the opportunity arises. No pay, no title, no recognition is needed. Musk first suggested the creation of a government efficiency commission last month during a conversation he hosted with the former president on X after endorsing him for president. He went on to express an interest in contributing to its efforts and said, I'd be happy to help out on such a commission. Politicians and industry leaders have pushed for government efficiency commissions in the past. Republican President Ronald Reagan established a similar body while he was in office from 81 to 89 called the Grace Commission. But not everyone supports the implementation of such a task force. Everett Kelly, president of the American Federation of Government Employees, a union that represents 750,000 federal workers, accused Trump and Musk of wanting to gut the federal government's nonpartisan civil service to replace fired workers with their allies. Correct. There's nothing efficient about that, Kelly told Reuters. All right, Everett Kelly, you're going on a list. Whoever's keeping the list out there, add Everett Kelly. He's got to go. If there's any doubt in your mind that Trump is being installed, this should help to dissuade that. The significance of someone like Elon Musk proposing this, getting Trump's endorsement, and then Jamie Dimon, of all people, signing on to it publicly and explicitly is not being done for no reason. Jason and I are going to have a conversation. I need to confirm the timing of it, but Jason and I are going to have a conversation about why he's predicting that Trump is being installed and why I'm endorsing that prediction. We've got a lot to cover with that, but I think what I'm going to propose to him is recording this conversation over the weekend. We will do it live as a stream for. This is what I'm thinking. I'm going to say it out loud here, and then I'll confirm it with him. So follow me on Twitter @RealKingPilled if you want to get confirmation that this is going to be the case. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to stream it live for channel members on YouTube on the channel here. So go to a browser, become a channel member of the King Pill. It's only $5 a month. Just go to the channel. You'll see a join button. Join, sign up. You'll be able to watch it live. I'm going to try to do it with him tomorrow because I've got some time tomorrow. I'm going to see if he's available for us to sit down and do that. And then as soon as it's done, I'll post it on the King Pilled Substack, which is you can sign up there. I'll post that one for subscribers as well. I think that one's $7 a month. Go to kingpilled.substack.com and join there. It'll be posted there, and that's where we're going to be posting all the podcasts from now on. So if you want early access to the podcast episodes when they get posted, the ASTROLABE does not go on the podcast feed. The ASTROLABE will always be live and available to Gen Pop here on YouTube and X. But I'm going to start posting any podcast conversations that I do on the Substack, and then I'll set it to drop for Gen Pop next week while I'm going to be out, so you guys get a little something to tide yourselves over when you don't have access to the ASTROLABE. But the very last story that I have here, a little white pill to leave you guys with. Church attendance is increasing in Gen Z, primarily among young men. Here is a white pill. This is religious attendance by gender and birth year. So attending weekly, you could see the orange here is women, starting in 1940. And the blue is women. So blue is men. So in 1940, women were attending church weekly much more than men. And they've stayed ahead of them until the 80s. And then men passed it, and they're on their way up. The never attend number is going down. And it has been for the last little while. And this squares with a bunch of other things that, a bunch of other data that I've seen as well. And I saw one today also that said that for the first time in years, the obesity numbers are going down. They've turned down. People are getting less obese. Now, is this because of Ozempic? Probably. But there's other reasons for that as well. Shout out to RFK and the incoming war on big pharma and big ag that we very much need. All right. Well, I have got to piss like a Russian racehorse, so I am going to sign off for the day. I will invite you guys to join the King Pill Discord. Join the King Pill Discord because tonight we're going to be doing a schizo stream. And what we are going to watch is episodes 1 and 2 of The Art of the Surge, which has just been released by Tucker Carlson on the Tucker Carlson Network. This is the thing that made the browser spaz out before. It started playing the promo.
So we're standing exactly in the path where the president will walk out to the crowd about an hour from now, and there's a malfunction with the flag.
Be careful!
The hood's rocking with Trump. Trump's definitely got the black vote back.
Making America great again.
Donald Trump is the boss. And when you think you're in control, Donald Trump does something that says you're not in control.
You think Biden could do this? I don't think so.
What is the campaign specifically doing differently now?
If there's one word to describe it, it's just execution.
Biden's just taken the stage of the debate.
The standard is not, are you able to stand up for 90 minutes?
I can't even understand him right now.
Trump is like riding a great racehorse, right? You put the blinders on, you guide him into the corners, and you let him run.
Look at how many people are showing up for a rally. Everyone, please, just make sure you're ready. 30 seconds. Let's go, America!
The president's been shot. I repeat, the president's been shot.
So if you would like to watch that with a group of us, join the King Pill Discord at kingpill.com. It'll be available to all members of the Discord. Sign up at whatever tier you'd like. That's the best way you could support the show, and you get the most for your money. We appreciate all your support. We'll be watching that, probably going live around 8 p.m. Central tonight. This will be our schizo stream for the week, and we'd love to have you. So I appreciate all you guys showing up here for the show. It's good to be back. Even if I'm just going to be back for a couple of days, and then I'll be hitting the road again. Follow me on Twitter at RealKingPill. That's where you can get all the updates on what we're doing. Join the King Pill Discord at kingpill.com. If you want to throw me some cash to help me keep the lights on and keep doing this, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/kingpilled. You can also give tips on Twitter. If you go to my Twitter profile, just past 9,000 followers. Very much appreciate all of you guys. There's a tip bucket on Twitter. You can tip me in Bitcoin or Venmo. That helps me keep doing all this stuff because I'm basically doing it full time now. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you for joining the live chat. And it's been a long show, but I think it was merited. And I will see you guys around. For now, hit the like button on your way out. We're at 90. We still got 98 watching. If any of you haven't hit the like button yet, see if we can get it to 100 before we start or before we end here. And I won't wait for it. Go ahead and hit the like button as I give you Hulk.
They're my hero. And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough.